Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 was born an alien. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Little Big Secrets, Max. The calibration's off again. Ben shouted, his tiny voice echoing inside the metal casing of the RV's radio. The rust bucket jolted over a pothole, sending Ben tumbling backward into a tangle of wires. At 6 inches tall, almost everything in the human world was a potential hazard. But that never stopped him from diving headfirst into fixing things. "Careful in there, kiddo," Max called back, his eye appearing at the open panel as he peered inside. "Need the needle nose pliers?" Ben pushed himself up, dusting off his makeshift jumpsuit crafted from scraps of fabric Max had found. "Nah, I got this. Just hold the road steady for 5 seconds, would ya?" Max chuckled. "On these back roads? I'll do my best." Ben scampered across the circuit board, his 4-fingered hands working with precision that would make watchmakers jealous. Being a Galvan had its perks. He could rewire an entire system without needing tools humans required. His gray skin glistened with sweat as he reconnected the loose transistor with practiced ease. And, done. Ben leapt toward the opening, where Max's waiting palm caught him. Radio should pick up stations from 3 states over now. Not that there's anything good playing. Max set Ben on the dashboard. "Nice work. What would I do without my personal mechanic? Probably still be listening to static," Ben grinned, revealing teeth that looked too large for his bulbous head. He gazed out the windshield at the highway stretching before them. "So where are we headed next?" Max's expression shifted slightly. "About that, we need to talk, Ben." Ben's large eyes narrowed. Those words never meant anything good. "What's wrong? Did the plumbers contact you? Did they find out about me?" "No, nothing like that," Max assured him, keeping one hand on the wheel while gesturing reassuringly with the other. "It's about this summer's trip. We're going to have company." "Company?" Ben felt his heart's, Galvan's had too, racing faster. "What kind of company?" "Gwen. My granddaughter." Ben froze. He'd heard stories about Max's family for years, seen pictures of the red-headed girl who shared Max's DNA, but they'd always kept their distance. Having a tiny alien in the RV wasn't exactly something you could explain to most humans, even family. "For how long?" Ben asked, his voice smaller than usual. "All summer." "All summer?" Ben jumped to his feet. "But where will I hide? How will I eat? What about bathroom breaks?" "What about, we'll figure it out," Max said, using the tone that meant he'd already made up his mind. "She's going through a rough patch with her parents. Need some time away. And we're supposed to be her vacation." "Max, she doesn't even know I exist." Max sighed. "I know it won't be easy. But Gwen's a good kid. Smart too, almost as smart as you." "Nobody's as smart as me," Ben mumbled, but his hearts weren't in the boast. "When does she arrive?" "Tomorrow. We're picking her up in Bellwood." Ben slumped down on the dashboard. "So this is my last day of freedom." "It's not prison, Ben. Easy for you to say. You get to walk around in the open. I'll be stuck hiding in air vents and cupboards all summer." Max pulled the RV over to the side of the road and turned to face Ben fully. His weathered face softened. "I found you 13 years ago in that crashed pod, Ben. I've watched you grow from a baby who could fit in my shirt pocket to the teenager you are now. In all that time, have I ever let anything bad happen to you?" Ben crossed his arms. "No. And I'm not about to start now. We'll work this out together. Like we always do." Ben sighed dramatically, his large head drooping. "Fine. But I get to pick where we camp tonight. And I want to go somewhere with tech too. Salvage. Max smiled. Deal. There's an old factory site near the woods outside Bellwood. Might find something interesting there. Now you're talking. Ben's mood instantly brightened. I need parts for my hover platform upgrade anyway. As the rust bucket pulled back onto the road, Ben climbed up to his favorite spot on the sun visor. From here, he could see everything without being spotted by passing cars. The world always looked massive from his perspective, but that never scared him. If anything, it made him more determined to explore every inch of it. The abandoned factory was everything Ben hoped for: rusted machinery, discarded electronics, and not another human in sight. While Max set up camp in the adjacent woods, Ben scurried through the factory ruins, filling his makeshift backpack with circuit boards and copper wire. Jackpot, he exclaimed, discovering a partially intact cell phone. The transistors in this are perfect for my sonic disruptor. As sunset approached, Ben reluctantly returned to the rust bucket, his pack bulging with technological treasures. He entered through the special hatch Max had installed beneath the vehicle, a tiny door that led to a network of tunnels Ben had designed throughout the RV. Inside, Max was stirring something that bubbled ominously on the stove. Please tell me that's not Rizian slug stew again, Ben called up from his entrance point on the floor. Max grinned. Better. Marinated mealworms with fermented soybean paste. Your favorite. Despite not being human, Ben had developed a suspiciously human reaction to Max's exotic cooking, absolute horror. I think I'll stick with the nutrient paste tonight. Suit yourself, Max shrugged, spooning the writhing mixture onto a plate. More for me. Ben climbed up the custom ladder system he'd built along the interior wall until he reached the counter. His own living space was hidden inside what appeared to be a standard cabinet, but open to reveal a multi-room dwelling scaled perfectly to his size, complete with furniture crafted from odds and ends. So, Ben said, pulling out a tube of green nutrient gel, what's the plan for tomorrow? Where do I hide when Gwen shows up? Max sat at the table, shoveling his questionable dinner into his mouth with enthusiasm. I've been thinking about that. The storage compartment above my bed has that false back you installed. You could make that your primary hiding spot. For the whole summer. Ben squeezed paste into his mouth and grimaced at the bland taste. I'll go stir crazy. Just until we figure out if we can trust her with the truth. Ben nearly choked. You're considering telling her about me? Eventually, Max nodded. Not right away. But Gwen's family. And she's old enough now to understand the importance of keeping secrets. Or she freaks out, calls the government, and I end up dissected in some lab, Ben countered. Max fixed him with a stern look. You know I'd never let that happen. Ben sighed, setting down his nutrient tube. I know. I've never met another kid before. Not up close. What if she hates me? She won't hate you, Max said gently. She might be shocked at first, but Gwen's got a good heart. Give her a chance. Fine, Ben conceded. But if this goes sideways, I'm reprogramming your satellite radio to only play polka music. Max laughed. That's fair. Now, how about we test out that portable gaming system you modified? I bet I can beat your high score in Space Invaders. You're on, old man. Hours later, after thoroughly trouncing Max in every game they played, Ben snuck out of the RV while his guardian slept. Moonlight illuminated the factory ruins, casting long shadows that made perfect cover for a Galvan on a midnight expedition. Ben had spotted something earlier, a strange glint from the woods beyond the factory that didn't match any natural or man-made light source he recognized. Scientific curiosity demanded investigation. He activated the hover platform he'd built from salvaged drone parts, climbing aboard the dinner plate-sized disc. With a press of the control pad, it lifted him silently into the air. The night air felt cool against his skin as he zoomed between trees, following the faint energy signature his scanner had detected. Come on, "Where are you?" he muttered, adjusting the scanner's sensitivity. The device beeped louder as he approached a small clearing. Gotcha. What Ben found wasn't what he expected. A crater about 5 feet wide scarred the earth, steam still rising from its edges. In the center sat a spherical object about the size of a softball, its metallic surface inscribed with symbols that made his heart beat faster. Galvan Tech, he whispered in disbelief, hovering closer. Out here. The sphere pulsed with a soft green light as he approached, as if responding to his presence. Ben's scientific mind raced with possibilities, but caution kept him from touching it immediately. He pulled out a multi-tool from his pocket and extended a probe to gently tap the surface. The reaction was instant. The sphere split open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a device unlike anything Ben had ever seen, a watch-like object with the same strange symbols, its center glowing green against a white and black housing. Whoa! Ben breathed, leaning closer. Without warning, the device leapt from its container, shooting toward Ben like it was alive. He yelped and tried to dodge, but his hover platform wasn't fast enough. The device latched onto his wrist, shrinking to fit his tiny Galvan arm perfectly. Get off! Ben shouted, tumbling from his platform to the ground. He pulled at the device, but it had sealed seamlessly around his wrist. Come on, come on. The green center of the device projected a holographic display that rotated through silhouettes of different alien species. As Ben watched in fascination and fear, the display settled on a humanoid figure engulfed in flames. What is this thing? He wondered aloud, poking at the interface. The center popped up slightly. Instinctively, Ben pushed it back down. Green light exploded around him, coursing through his body like liquid fire. He felt himself stretching, growing, changing in ways that defied his understanding of biology. Pain and exhilaration mixed as his body reconfigured itself at the molecular level. When the light faded, Ben stumbled forward on legs much longer than he was used to. Disoriented, he reached out to steady himself against a tree, and set it ablaze with a touch. Ah, he jumped back, staring at hands made of living fire. What happened to me? His voice was deeper, resonating from a chest that now stood nearly 6 feet tall. Looking down at his transformed body, Ben saw he had become a being composed of magma-like rock with flames dancing across his surface. I'm a pyronite, he gasped, recognizing the species from Max's old plumber files. How is this possible? The watch-like device was still there, its symbol now centered on his chest. Ben touched it gingerly, careful not to burn the surrounding trees with his new flaming form. This is awesome, he shouted, sending a plume of fire into the night sky. For a Galvan who had spent his entire life hiding and feeling small, suddenly being tall and powerful was intoxicating. I can't wait to show Max. Ben took a step forward, then stopped as realization hit him. Wait, I can't control this yet. If I go back like this, I might burn down the rust bucket. He focused, trying to will the flames covering his body to diminish. To his surprise, they responded, becoming less wild. Okay, that's a start. Now how do I change back? As if answering his question, the symbol on his chest began beeping and flashing red. A moment later, another flash of light engulfed him, and Ben found himself back in his Galvan form, sprawled on the forest floor next to his hover platform. That was incredible, he breathed, examining the device on his wrist. A transformation matrix? But why would it be looking for me? A sound from deeper in the woods caught his attention, footsteps, too heavy to be an animal. Ben quickly gathered his scanner and climbed aboard his hover platform, ducking behind a large rock just as a beam of light swept through the clearing. I know you're here, called a raspy voice. My sensors detected the energy surge. Show yourself. From his hiding spot, Ben could see a tall, lanky man with wild white hair entering the crater site. He wore a lab coat and carried what looked like modified scientific equipment. The man knelt by the empty pod, examining it with gleeful intensity. Extraterrestrial technology, the man murmured. Just as I predicted. And recently activated, too. Ben recognized the look in the man's eyes, the fevered gleam of scientific obsession without ethical boundaries. He'd seen enough of Max's old case files to know this kind of human meant trouble for anything alien. The man pulled out a device that beeped rapidly as he pointed it in different directions. The energy signature is moving, that way. To Ben's horror, the man was pointing directly toward the rust bucket. Toward Max, not good, Ben whispered, powering up his hover platform. He needed to get back and warn Max before this stranger found them. As he zipped through the trees, Ben kept glancing at the device on his wrist, wondering what other forms it might contain, and whether he'd need them sooner than he thought. Max! Wake up! Ben hissed, shaking his guardian's enormous finger with all his might. We've got trouble. Max jolted awake, years of plumber training allowing him to go from deep sleep to full alertness in seconds. What is it? What's wrong? There's a human in the woods, Ben explained, words tumbling out rapidly. Some scientist guy. He's tracking alien tech, and he's heading this way. Slow down, Max said, sitting up and turning on the small lamp beside his bed. What alien tech is he tracking? Ben thrust out his arm, displaying the watch-like device. This. I found it in a crater in the woods. It jumped on me, and then I turned into a pyronite. Like, a full-sized one. And then this weird guy showed up with tracking equipment, and, Ben, Max interrupted, gently taking Ben's tiny arm to examine the device. This looks like, no, it can't be. Can't be what? You know what this thing is? Max's expression was grave. If it's what I think it is, it's called the Omnitrix. But it was supposed to be just a rumor, a theoretical device created by, a sharp knock on the RV door cut him off. Both froze. Hello, called the raspy voice Ben had heard in the woods. Is anyone awake in there? I require assistance. Max motioned for Ben to hide. The tiny alien scurried up to the ceiling compartment, pulling the hidden door closed behind him. Through a small peephole he'd installed, Ben watched Max approach the door cautiously. Who's there? Max called, one hand reaching toward the drawer where Ben knew he kept his old plumber weapons. Dr. Aloysius James Onimo, the voice replied. I've had a bit of car trouble and noticed your vehicle. Might I use your phone? Max opened the door a crack, blocking the entrance with his body. No cell service out here, I'm afraid. Nearest town is Bellwood, about 10 miles east. Ben could see the white-haired man trying to peer around Max into the RV. His eyes darted about with unnatural intensity. Perhaps I could trouble you for a ride in the morning? Onimo asked, his smile not reaching his eyes. I'm conducting important research in these woods. What kind of research? Max asked casually, but Ben recognized his suspicious tone. Unusual radiation patterns, Onimo said. In fact, my equipment detected a significant energy surge near your campsite earlier this evening. Did you notice anything unusual? Can't say that I did, Max replied. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to sleep. Big day tomorrow. As Max began to close the door, Onimo's hand shot out to stop it. One moment. My sensors indicate the energy source is actually, inside your vehicle. Ben's heart pounded so loudly he was sure they could hear it. He watched Max's posture change subtly, shifting to a defensive stance he recognized from the times Max had demonstrated his old plumber combat moves. I think you should leave now, Max said firmly, no pretense of friendliness remaining. Onimo's face contorted with anger. You're hiding something. Something that belongs in the hands of science, my hands. He reached into his coat and pulled out a strange-looking gun. I won't ask again. Max moved faster than Ben would have thought possible for a man his age. His fist connected with Onimo's jaw, sending the scientist stumbling backward. In the same motion, Max slammed the door shut and engaged every lock. Ben, we're leaving, he called, rushing to the driver's seat. Hold on to something. The rust bucket's engine roared to life. Ben climbed out of his hiding spot and used his travel tubes to make his way to the front of the vehicle, emerging on the dashboard as Max threw the RV into gear. Who was that lunatic? Ben asked as they bounced over the uneven ground, heading for the access road. Trouble, Max said grimly. I've heard of Onimo. Ex-veterinary scientist who lost his mind after being denied some award. Been off the grid for years, but rumor had it he was experimenting with animal mutation. A loud thump on the roof interrupted them. Both looked up as a dent appeared in the metal ceiling. What the? Ben started, but was cut off by a screeching sound as claws tore through the roof panel. A mutated creature that resembled a cross between a bat and a frog thrust its head through the opening, its red eyes glowing in the darkness. It screeched, displaying rows of needle-like teeth. Ben, get back! Max shouted, swerving the RV to try to dislodge the creature. Instead of retreating, Ben looked at the device on his wrist. The center was glowing green again. I've got a better idea. Ben, no. We don't know what that thing does. But Ben had already twisted the dial, cycling through silhouettes until he found one with 4 arms. Time to fight back, he declared, slapping down the core. Green light filled the RV as Ben once again felt his body transforming. This time, he grew into a massive 4-armed, red-skinned being that barely fit in the RV's interior. His head brushed against the ceiling as his broad shoulders strained the walls. Whoa, his deeper voice boomed. This is what being a Tetraman feels like. The mutant creature shrieked in surprise at the sudden appearance of a much larger threat. Ben reached up with 2 of his arms and grabbed the creature, yanking it through the roof opening and tossing it away from the moving vehicle. Ben! Max exclaimed, staring in shock at the transformed Galvan. How did you? What are you? Still me, Max. Ben grinned, flexing his multiple arms. Just bigger and stronger. This thing turns me into different aliens. Before Max could respond, more screeching filled the air as 3 more flying mutants descended toward the RV. Through the windshield, Ben could see Dr. Onimo riding atop a massive mutated stag beetle, keeping pace with them on the forest road. You can't escape. Onimo called, his voice carrying over the engine noise. That device will be mine. Not if I have anything to say about it, Ben growled, climbing awkwardly through the enlarged roof opening. Standing on top of the moving RV, he felt powerful in a way he never had before. After a lifetime of hiding and feeling vulnerable, being able to fight back was exhilarating. The flying mutants circled and dove at him. Ben swung his massive fists, connecting with one creature and sending it spiraling into the trees. Another latched onto his back, its claws digging into his tough hide. Ben reached behind him, grabbed it with 2 hands, and threw it directly at Onimo. The scientist dodged, his beetle mount chittering angrily. Fascinating, he called out. The device allows for complete genetic recombination. Even more valuable than I thought. You have no idea what you're messing with. Ben shouted back, bracing himself as Max took a sharp turn onto the main road. The rust bucket picked up speed on the paved surface. Onimo urged his beetle mount forward. On the contrary, I know exactly what I want, and I always get what I want. The beetle shot a glob of sticky substance from its mandibles, hitting Ben squarely in the chest. The adhesive hardened instantly, restricting his movement. As he struggled against the rapidly hardening material, the symbol on his chest started beeping red. No, not now. Ben groaned, just before another flash of green light returned him to his Galvan form. The sudden transformation left him trapped in the hardened goo, now proportionally enormous compared to his 6-inch height. Worse, he was stuck on top of a speeding RV with nothing to hold on to. Max, he yelled, his voice too small to be heard over the engine and wind. Help! The RV hit a pothole, jolting Ben toward the edge of the roof. He scrambled desperately, trying to free himself from the adhesive. Just as he was about to fall, a giant hand scooped him up. "Gotcha!" Max called, having climbed halfway through the roof opening. "Hang on, kiddo." A shadow passed overhead as one of the flying mutants swooped down. Max ducked back into the RV just in time, clutching Ben protectively. "We can't outrun them," Max said, placing Ben on the dashboard while keeping one hand on the wheel. "And that beetle can match our speed." Ben worked his way free of the now brittle adhesive. "The watch isn't working," he said, tapping at the red glowing symbol. "I think it needs to recharge or something." Max's expression turned grim. "Then we'll have to lose them the old-fashioned way." He reached under the dashboard and pulled a hidden lever. "Hold tight." Rocket boosters, concealed in what appeared to be ordinary RV plumbing pipes, ignited with a roar. The rust bucket shot forward at highway speed, leaving Onimo and his mutants temporarily behind. "That should buy us some time," Max said, navigating the winding road with expert skill. "We need to get somewhere populated. Onimo won't risk exposing his mutants in a public place." Ben checked the device on his wrist, which was slowly cycling from red back to green. "How do you know so much about the Omnitrix, Max? You recognized it right away." Max sighed, keeping his eyes on the road. "It's a long story. The short version is that it was created by a Galvan scientist named Azimuth, supposedly the smartest being in 5 galaxies. It was rumored to be the most powerful device ever created, but no one knew exactly what it did. "Well, now we know," Ben said, looking at his wrist with newfound appreciation. "It turns the wearer into different alien species. But why did it find you? And why adjust to your size?" Max wondered. "Galvans are common enough, but you're the only one on Earth. The odds of it landing near you by coincidence are astronomical." Ben's eyes widened as a thought struck him. Unless it wasn't a coincidence. What if it was looking for me specifically? Before Max could respond, something massive landed on the road ahead of them, Onimo's beetle, now grown to the size of a small car. The scientist grinned maniacally from his perch atop the insect. "End of the road," he called as Max slammed on the brakes. The rust bucket skidded to a halt just feet from the mutated beetle. Max quickly scooped up Ben and placed him in the pocket of his Hawaiian shirt. "Stay hidden," he whispered. "Max, I think the watch is almost recharged," Ben whispered back. "Just need a few more minutes." Max nodded slightly, then opened the RV door to confront Onimo. "This has gone far enough," he called, stepping out with his hands raised placatingly. "You're dealing with forces you don't understand." Onimo dismounted his beetle, patting its carapace affectionately. "On the contrary, I understand perfectly. You've been harboring alien technology that could revolutionize genetic science. My life's work. That technology isn't yours to take," Max replied firmly. "Neither were the research grants they denied me," Onimo snarled, his face twisting with bitterness. "Neither was the award they gave to that fool Weatherby instead of me. But I took my rightful compensation regardless." From Max's pocket, Ben watched as the flying mutants landed around them, forming a circle. They were trapped. "What do you want?" Max asked, playing for time. Onimo stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with madness. "I want the transforming device, and I want the alien who was wearing it. My scanners show traces of unknown DNA unlike anything on Earth. Imagine what I could do with such genetic material." Ben felt Max's body tense. "There's no alien. Just the device, which I don't have anymore. It fell off during our escape." "Lies." Onimo hissed. "My equipment doesn't lie. The alien signature is coming from." His eyes fixed on Max's pocket. "From right there." Before Max could react, one of the flying mutants swooped in, knocking him to the ground. Another pinned his arms while Onimo approached, reaching for the pocket where Ben hid. "Max!" Ben cried out, no longer caring about staying hidden. Well, well, Onimo crooned, peering into the pocket. What have we here? A Galvan, on Earth? How extraordinary. Ben glared up at the scientist defiantly. Back off, creep. Onimo laughed. Such spirit from such a tiny thing. You'll make an excellent test subject. He reached in to grab Ben, who dodged to the side, directly into Onimo's other hand. Gotcha. Put him down. Max shouted, struggling against the creatures holding him. I think not, Onimo replied, studying Ben with clinical detachment. A Galvan would explain how my mutagen formulas were improved upon so quickly. Their intelligence is legendary. His gaze fixed on the device on Ben's wrist. And this must be the transformation device. Designed for a Galvan user, perhaps. Ben struggled in the scientist's grip, but couldn't break free. The device on his wrist was glowing green again, fully recharged, but he couldn't reach it with his arms pinned. Onimo turned to his mutants. Secure the old man. We're taking them both back to my lab. I have so many experiments in mind. You won't get away with this. Max growled, still fighting against his captors. I already have, Onimo smirked. He placed Ben in a small glass container, sealing it before the tiny alien could escape. Don't bother trying to break out. That glass can withstand impacts from creatures 100 times your size. Ben pounded against the transparent walls in frustration. He could see Max being tied up and loaded onto the back of the giant beetle. This was all his fault. If he hadn't gone exploring, hadn't found the Omnitrix, Max wouldn't be in danger. As Onimo placed Ben's container in a specially designed carrying case, the tiny Galvan caught a glimpse of the road ahead, and his heart leapt. A car was approaching, its headlights visible in the distance. Someone's coming. Ben shouted to Max, over here. Onimo whirled around, spotting the oncoming vehicle. No matter. My pets will take care of any interruptions. He gestured to two flying mutants, who took off toward the approaching car. The car slowed as the driver spotted the bizarre scene on the road, mutated creatures, a madman in a lab coat, and an old man being held captive. Then, to Ben's shock, the car pulled over and a familiar red-headed girl stepped out. Grandpa Max. Gwen Tennyson called, her voice confused and alarmed. What's going on? Gwen. Run. Max shouted, renewing his efforts to break free. Onimo's eyebrows rose in surprise. Another test subject? How convenient. Leave her alone. Ben yelled from inside his glass prison, though he knew Gwen couldn't hear him. The flying mutants descended toward Gwen, who displayed surprising agility by diving back into her car and locking the doors. The creatures landed on the roof, their claws scraping against metal as they tried to get in. Fascinating reflexes, Onimo observed. The girl might have useful genetic traits as well. Ben looked down at the now green Omnitrix, an idea forming. If he could just transform inside this container, he might be able to break free. But which alien form would work best in such a confined space? He twisted the dial, cycling through silhouettes until he found one that looked like a living pile of goo. This might work, he muttered, slapping down the core. Green light filled the container as Ben's body dissolved into a puddle of slime-like protoplasm, then reformed into a towering gelatinous being that burst the glass container from within. Onimo stumbled back in shock as Ben's polymorph form towered over him. What's wrong, Doc? Ben's voice bubbled from the slime creature's body. Experiment not going as planned? The transformative properties are even more extensive than I imagined. Onimo gasped, equal parts terrified and fascinated. A complete molecular rearrangement. Ben extended a pseudopod arm, wrapping it around Onimo and lifting him off the ground. Let's see how you like being the specimen for a change. With his free arm, he shot a glob of slime at the mutants holding Max, the adhesive properties of his new form temporarily blinding the creatures. Max broke free, rolling away from his captors. Ben. Get Gwen. Ben turned toward the car, where the flying mutants had nearly torn through the roof. He stretched his amorphous body, extending over the distance in seconds to engulf both creatures in his mass. They struggled within him, their movements visible through his transparent body before he hardened portions of himself, rendering them immobile. "You, gross," he commented, feeling the sensation of the creatures inside him. With a heaving motion, he ejected them forcefully into the forest. Gwen stared through the windshield, her face a mask of shock and confusion. What is that thing?" Ben approached the car, reforming his head into a more recognizable shape. "Don't be scared," he said, his voice still bubbling strangely. "I'm here to help." Before he could explain further, an energy beam struck him from behind. Ben's gelatinous body splattered across the road, temporarily losing cohesion. He reformed in time to see Animo wielding a strange device salvaged from his carrying case. "Magnificent resilience," the scientist exclaimed. "But every organism has its weakness." Max tackled Animo from behind, sending them both tumbling to the ground. "Ben, get Gwen out of here." Ben reshaped his body, flowing around to Gwen's door and opening it with a formed hand. "Come on. We've got to move." Gwen hesitated, looking from the slime creature to her grandfather wrestling with a madman. What are you?" Explanations later, Ben insisted, forming a protective bubble around her. "Right now, we need to save Max." The giant beetle chittered angrily, moving to defend its master. It charged toward Max and Animo, mandibles clicking dangerously. Ben extended his amorphous body, forming a barrier between the insect and the humans. The impact sent painful vibrations through Ben's gelatinous form, but he held firm. "Gwen," he called, "in the RV, under the driver's seat, there's a blue box. Grab it." To her credit, Gwen didn't waste time asking questions. She sprinted to the rust bucket, diving inside while Ben held off the beetle. Max had managed to gain the upper hand against Animo, pinning the scientist to the ground. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." Animo snarled. "That device could change the world, my world." "That's what I'm afraid of," Max replied grimly. Gwen emerged from the RV with a small blue box. "I got it. Now what?" "Press the red button and throw it at the beetle." Ben called, his form starting to lose cohesion from the strain of holding back the massive insect. Gwen activated the device and hurled it with surprising accuracy. It landed on the beetle's carapace and immediately expanded into a net of energy that encased the creature, shrinking it back to normal size with a flash of light. "Containment field," Ben explained, reforming beside her. "Standard plumber tech." "Plumber?" Gwen repeated, bewildered. "What does bathroom repair have to do with any of this?" The symbol on Ben's chest started beeping red. "Not that kind of plumber," he said quickly. "Look, don't freak out, okay? What you're about to see is going to be weird, but I promise I'll explain everything." Before Gwen could respond, green light engulfed Ben once more, and he reverted to his tiny Galvan form. The transformation left him standing on the asphalt at Gwen's feet, looking up at her towering figure. Gwen's jaw dropped. You're an alien," Ben finished for her, spreading his arms in a "here I am" gesture. "Name's Ben. I live with Max. And yeah, I can turn into other aliens now, apparently. It's been a weird night." Max approached, dragging a subdued Animo with him. "I see you two have officially met," he said dryly. Gwen stared between them, her analytical mind visibly processing the impossible scene before her. "Grandpa, you've been living with an alien? All this time?" 13 years, Max confirmed. "Found him as a baby in a crashed pod not far from here, actually. Couldn't exactly turn him over to foster care. So you just kept him? Like a pet?" Gwen asked incredulously. "Hey!" Ben protested, climbing up onto a nearby rock to be more at eye level. "I'm not a pet. I'm family. Or something like it." Onimo laughed manically from where Max held him. Family? A human and a Galvan? Preposterous. That creature is a scientific miracle, one that belongs in a laboratory. That creature has a name, Max said firmly. And he belongs exactly where he is, with people who care about him. Gwen knelt down to look at Ben more closely. This is insane. I was just coming to spend summer vacation with my grandfather, and now there's aliens and monsters and mad scientists. Ben shrugged his tiny shoulders. Welcome to my life. Although the transforming part is new. That just happened tonight. The device, Max explained, nodding toward the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist. It's called the Omnitrix. Supposedly the most powerful technology in the galaxy. And it belongs to me. Onimo shrieked, struggling against Max's grip. The discoveries I could make with it would revolutionize, save it for the authorities, Max interrupted, securing Onimo's hands with zip ties from his pocket. The real plumbers will want to talk to you about illegal genetic experimentation. Gwen was still staring at Ben, who was beginning to feel uncomfortable under her scrutiny. So, this is going to be awkward, huh? He ventured. Surprise, your grandpa's been hiding an alien for over a decade. Happy summer vacation. To his surprise, a slow smile spread across Gwen's face. Are you kidding? This is amazing. I have so many questions. How does your species reproduce? What's your planet like? Can you build a quantum computer? What's your mathematical system? Ben blinked his oversized eyes. That's not the reaction I was expecting. Max chuckled. Told you she was smart. Almost as smart as me, Ben replied with a grin, then looked thoughtfully at the Omnitrix. But I think we all have more questions than answers right now. Like why this thing found me, and why it works the way it does. As if in response, the Omnitrix pulsed with green light. A holographic projection appeared above it, displaying symbols in Galvan script that only Ben could read. What's it saying? Gwen asked, fascinated. Ben's eyes widened as he translated. It says, Omnitrix protocol activated. Primary user identified, Ben Tennyson of Galvan Prime, currently residing on Earth. Alternate timeline DNA samples accessed and calibrated for transformation. Warning, Vilgax has detected activation signal. Vilgax? Max's face went pale. That's not possible. Who's Vilgax? Gwen and Ben asked simultaneously. Max's expression was grave as he looked up at the night sky. Trouble. The kind that makes Onimo here look like a playground bully. Ben followed his gaze upward, a strange feeling settling in his tiny chest. Something told him his life had just changed forever, and not just because of the device on his wrist. The secret he'd kept his entire life was out, and the universe suddenly seemed a lot bigger and more dangerous than before. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid. With the Omnitrix, he wasn't just a tiny alien hiding from the world anymore. He could fight back. He could be a hero. Gwen nudged him gently with her finger. So, alien cousin, looks like we're going to have an interesting summer after all. Ben looked up at her, then at Max, then down at the Omnitrix. Something tells me interesting is an understatement. In the distance, police sirens wailed as emergency vehicles responded to the strange events on the highway. The night sky sparkled with stars, one of which, unbeknownst to the trio, was actually a massive ship entering Earth's atmosphere, drawn by the activation signal of the most powerful device in the galaxy. Chapter 2, Hunters and Hunted. You're saying Grandpa Max has been kidnapped by a crazy scientist who wants to dissect you? Gwen whispered, peering through binoculars at the abandoned research facility below. And I thought summer camp would be boring. Ben adjusted the makeshift amplifier on his tiny Galvan ear, fine-tuning it to pick up sounds from inside the building. Told you Onimo was bad news. His goons ambushed us at the gas station while you were in the bathroom. Grabbed Max before I could even activate the Omnitrix. 3 hours had passed since Dr. Onomo's mutant creatures had snatched Max right out of the rust bucket. Now, Ben and Gwen were crouched in the underbrush on a hillside overlooking Onomo's hideout, a dilapidated genetics lab that had been shut down years ago for ethical violations. "I still can't believe my summer is suddenly all aliens and mutants," Gwen muttered, lowering the binoculars. "And that my cousin is a 6-inch tall gray alien who can transform into other aliens." Ben snorted, climbing onto her shoulder for a better view. "And I can't believe Max's granddaughter is actually cool. Life's full of surprises." "I never said you were cool," Gwen retorted, but a smile tugged at her lips. "So what's the plan? Please tell me you have a plan." Ben pointed toward a broken ventilation shaft on the building's east side. "See that? Perfect entry point for someone my size. I can sneak in, find Max, and unlock a door for you. While those mutant bat frog things are patrolling." "No way. Too dangerous." "Got a better idea?" Ben challenged. Gwen hesitated, then nodded. "Actually, yeah. What if you used that watch to turn into something that could just smash through the front door? Go in loud, create a distraction while I sneak in the back." Ben touched the Omnitrix thoughtfully. "Not bad, dweeb. But we don't even know what all this thing can do yet. I've only tried 3 forms, and I have zero control over how long the transformations last." "Then maybe it's time for a crash course." Gwen picked Ben up and set him on a flat rock. "Try activating it again. See what options you have." Ben twisted the Omnitrix dial, bringing up the holographic display of alien silhouettes. "I count 10 different forms so far. The fire guy, the 4-armed guy, the slime guy, and 7 I haven't tried yet." "Any of them look sneaky?" Gwen asked, peering at the tiny holographic display. "This one might work." Ben stopped on a silhouette that appeared thin and agile. "Let's find out." He slammed down on the core. Green light flashed as Ben's tiny Galvan form stretched and reconfigured. When the light faded, a blue-skinned, velociraptor-like alien stood where Ben had been, complete with a helmet-like head, ball-shaped feet, and a streamlined body built for speed. "Whoa!" Ben exclaimed, his voice raspier in this form. "Check me out. I feel like I could break the sound barrier." He took a step and immediately shot forward 20 feet, crashing into a tree. "Oof." Gwen stifled a laugh. "Real graceful." "Hey, it's not like these things come with an instruction manual." Ben protested, picking himself up and trying again with smaller movements. This time he managed to zip back to Gwen's side without incident. "I think I'm getting the hang of," a twig snapped nearby. Both froze. "Someone's coming," Gwen whispered, grabbing Ben's clawed hand and pulling him behind a large boulder. From their hiding spot, they watched as a tall figure in metallic armor emerged from the trees. The newcomer's helmet obscured their face, but the crystalline structure of their body was unmistakable. "A Petrosapien?" Ben whispered, recognizing the species from Max's old files. "What's one doing here?" The armored figure paused, head tilting as if listening. Then, faster than either of them could react, the figure shot a spray of crystal shards that pinned Gwen's sleeve to the boulder. "Don't move," a deep, gravelly voice ordered as the figure approached. "I'm not here for you, human. I'm tracking the Omnitrix signal." Ben stepped forward protectively. "Leave her alone. I'm the one you want." The Petrosapien studied Ben's Kinoceleran form. A Kinoceleran wielding the Omnitrix. Interesting. The report said it had bonded with a Galvan. Reports? Who's reporting about me? Ben demanded. The Omnitrix is the most valuable device in the galaxy, the armored alien replied. News of its activation spread quickly. My employer has offered a substantial reward for its retrieval. Your employer can forget it, Ben said, taking a fighting stance. This thing's stuck on my wrist, and I'm kind of attached to it. Literally. The Petrosapien chuckled darkly. That won't be a problem. I'll just take the risk too. Ben's eyes widened. Gwen, run, he shouted, then launched himself at the bounty hunter, using his newfound speed to land a flurry of kicks that did little more than scratch the crystalline armor. The Petrosapien swung a massive arm, catching Ben mid-attack and sending him flying into the underbrush. Is that the best you can do? Gwen, having freed herself from the crystal shard, grabbed a fallen branch and swung it at the attacker. It shattered harmlessly against his back. Leave him alone. We need to save our grandfather. The bounty hunter paused. Your grandfather? Dr. Onimo kidnapped him, Ben explained, staggering back into the clearing. He's in that facility down there. We were about to rescue him when you showed up. The Petrosapien turned toward the building below, his posture shifting subtly. Onimo? The human geneticist? You know him? Gwen asked, keeping her distance. I know of him. His experiments have caught the attention of certain off-world interests. The bounty hunter seemed to consider something, then reached up and removed his helmet, revealing a face made entirely of pale green crystal. My name is Tetrax. I was, a mercenary hired to retrieve the Omnitrix. Was? Ben repeated skeptically. Tetrax nodded. I'm reconsidering my position. The Omnitrix was created by Azimuth, the greatest Galvan scientist who ever lived. It was never meant to be a weapon, despite what my employer believes. The symbol on Ben's chest began flashing red. Oh. Not now. In a flash of red light, he reverted to his tiny Galvan form, now looking up at Tetrax from ground level. Great timing. Tetrax's crystalline eyes widened. You really are a Galvan. But the Omnitrix was designed for use by larger species. How is this possible? Ben shrugged his small shoulders. No idea. It found me last night, jumped on my wrist, and now I can transform into different aliens. But that's not important right now. My guardian's in danger, and we need to get him out. Tetrax studied the small alien thoughtfully. A Galvan who cares for a human. Unusual. He looked toward the facility again. If Onimo has your guardian, time is critical. His experiments tend to be irreversible. Then help us, Gwen urged, stepping forward. You seem to know what you're doing, and we could use the backup. Ben crossed his arms. Hold on. 5 minutes ago, he was trying to cut off my wrist. Now we're asking him to join our rescue mission. You have a better idea? Gwen challenged. The Omnitrix is recharging, Grandpa's in danger, and we're up against a mad scientist with an army of mutants. Ben glanced at the red glowing Omnitrix, then back at Tetrax. Fine. But I'm watching you, Crystal Face. Tetrax actually smiled, the movement strange on his rigid features. Your caution is warranted. But I give you my word, for now, our goals align. He knelt to examine the facility through tactical lenses in his helmet. 3 entrances, all guarded by mutated creatures. Heat signatures show approximately 15 life forms inside, one of which appears restrained. That's max, Ben confirmed. How do we get past the guards? Tetrax transformed one arm into a crystalline blade. I could eliminate them. No killing, Ben said firmly. These aren't evil creatures, they're victims of Onimo's experiments. Tetrax seemed surprised by this response. As you wish. Then we'll need a distraction. Gwen's face lit up. I think I've got one. She pulled a small aerosol can from her pocket. Silly string from the gas station. If those bat creatures navigate by echolocation like real bats, this should confuse their sonar when sprayed on their wings. Ben stared at her. That's actually brilliant. Don't sound so surprised, Gwen smirked. Now we just need to get close enough to use it. The Omnitrix on Ben's wrist pulsed, turning from red to green. Leave that to me. He twisted the dial, cycling through options. Let's try something stealthy this time. He selected a ghostly-looking silhouette and pressed down the core. Green light enveloped him once more. When it faded, Ben had transformed into a phantom-like being with a single eye, wispy tail, and clawed hands. His body was primarily black with white striped patterns and a ghostly aura. Whoa, his voice echoed eerily. This is new. I feel insubstantial. He experimentally waved a hand through a nearby tree trunk, passing right through it. I can phase through solid matter. Perfect, Tetrax nodded approvingly. You can transport the silly string to the guards without being detected. On it. Ben took the can from Gwen, finding he could make it intangible along with himself. Meet you guys at the east entrance in 5 minutes. Before they could respond, Ben zoomed down toward the facility, his new form gliding effortlessly through the air. The sensation was exhilarating, like swimming through reality itself. He passed straight through the outer wall of the building, emerging into a dimly lit corridor. Okay, first step, find the guards, Ben whispered to himself, drifting silently through the hallway. He didn't have to search long. 2 of Animo's bat creatures hung from the ceiling near the east entrance, their oversized ears twitching at every sound. Ben floated directly above them, uncapped the silly string, and sprayed it liberally over their sensitive wing membranes. The creatures screeched in confusion, flapping frantically as they tried to dislodge the sticky substance. Sorry, guys, Ben murmured. Just following the plan. With the guards distracted, he phased back outside where Tetrax and Gwen were waiting. East entrance is clear. The guards are having a meltdown over their new fashion accessories. Good work, Tetrax acknowledged, leading them toward the door. Now comes the hard part. Once inside, they moved cautiously through the corridors, Tetrax taking point with Ben floating just behind him and Gwen bringing up the rear. The facility's interior was a nightmare of cobbled-together laboratory equipment, makeshift cages, and disturbing specimens floating in tanks of green fluid. This guy needs serious therapy, Gwen whispered, grimacing at a half-formed creature suspended in solution. Ben nodded grimly. And people call aliens monsters. A faint groan echoed from deeper in the building. That's Max. Ben exclaimed, phasing through a wall before the others could stop him. What he found on the other side made his spectral blood run cold. Max was strapped to an examination table, electrodes attached to his head and chest. Animo stood over him, adjusting dials on a machine that hummed with ominous energy. Just relax, Mr. Tennyson, Animo was saying, his voice eerily calm. I simply need to understand how you've managed to communicate with and train a Galvan. The neural mapping procedure is only moderately painful. You're insane, Animo, Max growled, straining against his restraints. Ben isn't some pet. He's a person. A sentient tool, perhaps, Animo conceded, but hardly a person in the human sense. His intelligence makes him valuable, certainly, but, I'll show you valuable, Ben snarled, abandoning stealth as rage overtook him. He solidified just enough to slam into Animo from behind, sending the scientist sprawling across the floor. Ben! Max's face lit up with relief, then quickly shifted to concern. Behind you. One of Animo's larger creations, a gorilla-like beast with reptilian scales, lunged from the shadows. Ben instinctively went intangible, letting the creature pass harmlessly through him. Nice try, Ben taunted, then swooped down to the restraints holding Max. To his dismay, his ghostly hands passed right through the buckles without affecting them. Oh. I can't turn solid enough to free you. Fascinating. Animo had recovered, watching Ben's efforts with scientific interest. An ectoneurite form. The Omnitrix truly does contain DNA from across the galaxy. The laboratory door burst open as Tetrax charged in, crystal shards flying from his hands to pin the mutant gorilla to the wall. Gwen followed, racing to Max's side. Grandpa. Are you okay? I've been better, Max grimaced as she worked on the restraints. How did you find me? Ben tracked you, Gwen explained, freeing his right arm. Turns out alien DNA comes with some perks. Animo backed toward a control panel. You think you've won? I've spent the night analyzing the DNA samples I collected from your little friend. Allow me to introduce the results. He slammed a button, opening a massive containment chamber at the far end of the lab. From within emerged 3 creatures that made everyone freeze in horror. Each was a grotesque hybrid bearing characteristics of Ben's transformations, one with 4 mismatched arms and flaming skin, another with a gelatinous body and raptor-like legs, and the third with ghost-like features and crystalline growths protruding from its body. Meet my Chimera series, Animo announced proudly. Enhanced with spliced alien DNA. Not as pure as transformations, but incredibly effective. The creatures roared in unison, advancing on the group with unnatural speed. Ben darted between them, trying to distract them from Max and Gwen. Tetrax. Get them out of here, he shouted, barely avoiding the swipe of a flaming claw. The Petrosapien nodded, firing a barrage of crystals to create a barrier between the creatures and the humans. This way, he called to Max and Gwen, pointing toward a side exit. We're not leaving Ben. Max insisted, now fully free from the restraints. You don't have to, Ben called back, dodging another attack. I'll be right behind, his words cut short as the Omnitrix symbol on his chest began flashing red. No, not now. In a flash of red light, Ben reverted to his Galvan form, 6 inches tall and suddenly very vulnerable in the middle of 3 monstrous creatures. Oops, he squeaked, looking up at the towering chimeras. Capture the Galvan. Animo commanded. Intact. The gelatinous chimera lunged forward, its body stretching to engulf Ben. At the last second, a crystal shard shot through the air, pinning Ben's jumpsuit to the wall and yanking him out of harm's way. Thanks. Ben called to Tetrax. Don't thank me yet, the bounty hunter replied grimly, stepping between Ben and the advancing chimeras. We're still outnumbered and outgunned. Max had retrieved something from Animo's workbench, a prototype neural disruptor. Maybe not, he said, adjusting the settings. Ben. These creatures have the same neural patterns as your transformations, right? Should do. Ben called back, understanding immediately. They're cloned from my DNA. Max aimed the device at the lead chimera. Then this should work. He fired, sending a pulse of energy that caused the creature to freeze in place, its nervous system temporarily scrambled. No. Animo shrieked. My creations. Gwen had made her way to Ben, carefully freeing him from the wall. You okay, cuz? Been better, Ben admitted as she placed him on her shoulder. The Omnitrix is recharging again. We need to get out of here before. A massive explosion rocked the facility, sending everyone stumbling. Through the newly created hole in the ceiling descended a hovering platform carrying a figure that made Tetrax instantly stiffen. 6-6, the Petrosapien growled. The newcomer was encased in purple and gray armor with numerous weapons protruding from every surface. Its helmet featured multiple red eyes and a respirator-like mouthpiece. It spoke in a harsh, clicking language that Ben couldn't understand. What's it saying? Gwen whispered. He's saying the bounty on the Omnitrix has doubled, Tetrax translated grimly. And that I'm a traitor for not securing it already. 6-6 fired a volley of energy blasts that sent everyone diving for cover. Animo, seeing his chance, fled toward a secondary lab with a vial of what looked like Ben's DNA sample. He's getting away with my DNA. Ben shouted. We have bigger problems, Max replied, pulling Gwen behind an overturned table as more blasts peppered the room. Tetrax engaged 6-6 directly, his crystalline body absorbing hits that would have vaporized organic beings. Get the Galvan out of here, he shouted to Max and Gwen. I'll hold him off. But Animo, Ben protested. We'll have to wait, Max cut him off. That bounty hunter is here for you, Ben. We need to move, now. They retreated toward the exit, dodging debris as Tetrax and 6-6's battle destroyed more of the laboratory. The remaining chimeras, no longer under Anamo's direct control, rampaged wildly, adding to the chaos. Once outside, they ran for the cover of the surrounding forest. The sounds of battle followed them, energy weapons discharging, crystals shattering, and inhuman roars echoing through the trees. We can't just leave Tetrax, Ben insisted when they'd put some distance between themselves and the facility. He saved me back there. He also tried to cut off your wrist earlier, Gwen reminded him. People change, Ben argued. Besides, that 6-6 guy seems way worse. Max checked the neural disruptor he'd taken, frowning at its depleted power cell. We're in no shape to go back in there. Tetrax can handle himself, he's a Petrosapien. Nearly indestructible. As if to contradict his words, an explosion larger than the previous ones rocked the forest. The laboratory's main structure collapsed in on itself, sending up a plume of dust and debris. Tetrax! Ben shouted, jumping down from Gwen's shoulder and running back toward the building despite his tiny size. Ben, wait! Max called, but Ben was already racing ahead, his small legs carrying him surprisingly fast for a Galvan. He reached the edge of the clearing just as a figure emerged from the rubble, Tetrax, his crystalline body cracked in several places but still intact. The Petrosapien staggered forward, then collapsed to one knee. Ben approached cautiously. Hey, Crystal Face. You still in one piece? Tetrax looked up, surprise registering in his faceted eyes. You came back. Yeah, well, contrary to popular belief, size isn't everything, Ben shrugged. Where's 6-6? Temporarily disabled, Tetrax replied, rising slowly to his feet. But he'll recover. And he's not the only one looking for the Omnitrix now. What do you mean? Before Tetrax could answer, Max and Gwen caught up, both breathing heavily from the sprint. Ben! Max scolded. Don't run off like that. Tetrax needs help, Ben explained, pointing to the injured bounty hunter. And he has news. Bad news, from the sound of it. Tetrax nodded grimly. 6-6 mentioned that Vilgax has entered the system. If that's true, we have far worse problems than a lone bounty hunter. Max's face paled. Vilgax? Here. Who's Vilgax? Gwen asked. You mentioned him. Before. The most feared warlord in the galaxy, Max explained, his expression grave. If he's coming for the Omnitrix. Then Earth is in danger, Tetrax finished. Vilgax doesn't leave witnesses, and he doesn't care about collateral damage. He'll burn this entire planet to ash if that's what it takes to get the Omnitrix. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist, which was gradually cycling back to green. Because of this? What makes it so special? Tetrax's crystal features hardened. The Omnitrix was created by Azimuth as the ultimate tool for peace, a way for different species to understand each other by literally walking in each other's skin. But in the wrong hands, its ability to access and manipulate DNA could make it the most powerful weapon in existence. And Vilgax definitely qualifies as the wrong hands, Max added. A distant roar interrupted their conversation. One of Anamo's chimeras had survived the collapse and was moving through the forest toward them, tracking their scent. We need to move, Tetrax said urgently. My ship is hidden 2 kilometers north of here. Ship? Gwen repeated. As in spaceship? Tetrax nodded. It has defenses that might buy us time to figure out our next move. Ben checked the Omnitrix, still recharging. Lead the way. I'm not exactly in fighting shape at the moment. Max scooped Ben up, placing him securely on his shoulder. Just like old times, kiddo. Except now we're running from mutant monsters and alien warlords instead of overzealous park rangers, Ben quipped, holding on to Max's collar as they began moving through the forest. Tetrax took point, his crystalline body pushing through underbrush that would have slowed the humans. Gwen followed, with Max and Ben bringing up the rear. "So," Gwen said to Tetrax as they jogged, "you were sent to get the Omnitrix, but now you're helping us instead. Why the change of heart?" "I made a mistake once," Tetrax replied without turning around. "Helped Vilgax acquire a powerful weapon. He used it to destroy my homeworld, Petropia. Everyone I knew, gone in an instant." "I'm sorry," Gwen said softly. "Don't be. It taught me an important lesson about choosing sides." Tetrax glanced back at Ben. "When I saw how the Omnitrix had bonded to him, a Galvan, like its creator, I knew it had found its rightful wielder." Ben blinked in surprise. "You think it was looking for me specifically?" "The Omnitrix contains failsafes to prevent misuse," Tetrax explained. "It wouldn't bond permanently with just anyone." A crash behind them cut the conversation short. The Chimera was gaining ground, its unnatural speed allowing it to close the distance rapidly. "We won't outrun it," Max observed grimly. The Omnitrix on Ben's wrist pulsed green. "Then we fight," Ben declared, twisting the dial. "Let me try something new." He selected a muscular, insectoid silhouette and slammed down the core. Green light flashed as Ben transformed. When it faded, he had become a 9-foot-tall insect-like alien with 4 arms, a blue exoskeleton, and dragonfly-like wings buzzing from his back. Enhanced strength coursed through his body, along with a strange sense of fluid motion. "Whoa," he rumbled, his voice deeper and flanged. "This feels strong." He flexed his 4 arms experimentally. "A tetramite," Tetrax identified. "Powerful, but not very durable." "Let's test that," Ben replied, launching himself at the approaching Chimera with surprising speed. His first punch connected solidly, sending the creature stumbling backward. Ben pressed the advantage, his multiple arms allowing him to deliver a flurry of blows too rapid for the Chimera to counter. With a final uppercut, he sent the beast flying into a tree, where it slumped, momentarily stunned. "Nice work," Gwen called. Ben turned, grinning with his insectoid mandibles. "This form rocks." "I feel like I could." The Chimera recovered faster than expected, tackling Ben from behind. They rolled across the forest floor, a tangle of limbs and claws. Ben's exoskeleton cracked under the creature's strength, pain shooting through his transformed body. "Ben!" Max shouted, looking for a way to help. Tetrax moved to intervene, but Gwen beat him to it. She grabbed a fallen branch and swung it at the Chimera's head with all her might. The impact wasn't enough to hurt it, but distracted it momentarily. "Get away from him," she yelled, standing protectively over Ben. The creature roared, turning its attention to Gwen. As it lunged for her, something unexpected happened. Gwen threw up her hands instinctively, and a pulse of pinkish energy erupted from her palms, forming a momentary barrier that repelled the Chimera. "What the?" Gwen stared at her hands in shock. Ben seized the opportunity, grabbing the dazed creature and hurling it deep into the forest with his enhanced strength. "Since when can you do that?" he demanded. Gwen shook her head, still staring at her hands. "I have no idea." "It's energy manipulation," Tetrax observed. "Rare in humans, but not unheard of." Max was looking at his granddaughter with a mixture of surprise and what might have been recognition. "We can figure that out later. Right now, we need to keep moving." They continued through the forest at a rapid pace, Ben taking advantage of his tetramite form's speed and strength to clear obstacles from their path. When they finally reached a small clearing, Tetrax activated a device on his wrist. The air before them shimmered as a sleek, angular spacecraft materialized, its stealth field disengaging. "Whoa," Gwen breathed. "An actual UFO." "I prefer the term interstellar transport vessel," Tetrax corrected, pressing his hand to a panel that caused a ramp to descend. Quickly, inside. The ship's interior was surprisingly spacious, filled with technology beyond Earth's development. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, and the cockpit featured a panoramic view screen instead of conventional windows. "Make yourselves comfortable," Tetrax instructed, moving to the controls. "I need to run a diagnostic. That battle with 6-6 may have damaged some systems." The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began flashing red again. With a sigh, he braced himself for the reversion. Green light washed over him, and he shrank back down to his natural Galvan size, finding himself standing on the metallic floor of the spacecraft looking up at everyone else. "Man, I was just getting used to being tall," he complained. Max knelt beside him. "You okay, Ben? That chimera hit you pretty hard." "I'll live," Ben assured him, though his tiny body ached from the residual impact. "But what about Gwen? Since when can humans shoot energy from their hands?" All eyes turned to Gwen, who was examining her palms with a mixture of wonder and concern. "I don't know what happened," she admitted. "I just wanted to protect Ben, and it came out of me." Tetrax looked up from the ship's console. "There are humans with energy manipulation abilities. Rare genetic traits that most of your species has forgotten how to access. The stress of the situation may have awakened latent potential. Or maybe it's not entirely human," Max said quietly, earning surprised looks from everyone. "What do you mean, Grandpa?" Gwen asked. Max sighed, running a hand through his gray hair. "Your grandmother, Verdona, wasn't exactly from around here." "Wait, what?" Gwen's eyes widened. "Are you saying my grandmother was an alien?" "An Anodite," Max nodded. "Energy beings capable of manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. They call it mana." Ben burst out laughing, the sound high and squeaky in his Galvan form. "You've been hiding an alien cousin from me all these years. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black." "I wasn't hiding anything," Max defended himself. "Anodite abilities usually skip generations. I never expected either you or your brother to manifest them." Gwen was still processing this revelation. "So I'm part alien. And I can do magic?" "Not magic," Tetrax corrected. "Energy manipulation based on scientific principles your planet hasn't discovered yet. But the effect is similar to what some cultures would call magic, yes." "This is insane," Gwen murmured, then a slow smile spread across her face. "And also kind of awesome." Ben climbed up to the control console, examining the alien technology with professional interest. "So both the Tennyson kids have alien connections. What are the odds?" "Higher than you might think," Max replied cryptically. Before Ben could press for clarification, alarms blared throughout the ship. Tetrax rushed to the main console, checking readouts with growing concern. "What is it?" Max asked, tension evident in his voice. "Long-range sensors have detected a ship entering orbit," Tetrax reported grimly. "A very large ship. And it's broadcasting on frequencies used by Vilgax's fleet." "So soon?" Max's expression darkened. "How did he get here this quickly?" "The Omnitrix sent out a powerful signal when it activated," Tetrax explained. "Anyone looking for it would have detected it across half the galaxy." Ben looked down at the device on his wrist, feeling a weight of responsibility he'd never experienced before. "This is my fault. I found it, I activated it." "No, Ben," Max placed a reassuring hand near his tiny ward. "Whatever's happening, this isn't on you. The Omnitrix found you for a reason. A reason we need to understand," Tetrax added, typing commands into the console. "I'm going to try to decode more of the Omnitrix's programming. There might be information about its purpose and functions that could help us." As Tetrax worked, Ben noticed something odd about the display. "Wait, those glyphs, they're in Galvan script. I can read them." "You can?" Tetrax looked surprised. "Most translation software struggles with advanced Galvan linguistics." "Well, I am a Galvan," Ben pointed out. "Let me see." Tetrax adjusted the display so Ben could access it. The tiny alien's fingers flew over the holographic interface, his natural aptitude for technology enhanced by his species' innate intelligence. "This is fascinating," Ben murmured as he delved deeper into the code. "The Omnitrix isn't just a DNA storage device, it's carrying alternate timeline variants of specific genetic patterns." He looked up, eyes wide with realization. "It's not just transforming me into random aliens. It's showing me versions of myself from alternate realities where I was born as different species." "Alternate timelines?" Gwen repeated. "You mean like parallel universes where you were born a Pyronite instead of a Galvan?" "Exactly." Ben nodded excitedly. "That's why it feels so natural when I transform. I'm not becoming a different person, I'm becoming a different version of myself." Max stroked his chin thoughtfully. "That would explain why it bonded to you so easily. It wasn't choosing a random wielder, it was looking for you specifically." "But why?" Ben wondered. "Why create a device that shows one person their alternate selves?" Tetrax was studying another section of the display. According to this, the Omnitrix was designed as part of something called Project Unification. A way to bridge understanding between species by allowing the user to experience life through different perspectives. "A peace project," Max nodded. "That fits with what I know of Azimuth. Despite his prickly nature, he's always believed in fostering understanding between species." Ben was about to respond when another alarm sounded, this one more urgent than before. Tetrax rushed to check it. "We have incoming," he announced. "Drones from Vilgax's ship have entered the atmosphere. They're scanning for the Omnitrix's energy signature." "Can we cloak?" Max asked. Tetrax shook his head. "Not while the diagnostic is running. We need to move." He began powering up the engines. "Hold on. This might get rough." The ship lifted off, accelerating quickly into the sky. Through the view screen, they could see metallic spheres descending from the clouds, dozens of them, each about the size of a car. "Drone hunters," Tetrax identified. "Programmed to capture the Omnitrix at any cost." "Then let's not make it easy for them," Ben suggested. The Omnitrix had recharged again, glowing green on his wrist. "I've got an idea, but I'll need your help, Tetrax." "What do you have in mind?" Ben explained his plan quickly. Tetrax nodded, adjusting their course to head toward a mountainous region. "It might work, but the timing has to be perfect." "When is it not?" Ben grinned, twisting the Omnitrix dial to select an alien silhouette that resembled a humanoid made of molten rock. "Let's bring the heat." He slammed down the core, transforming once again into the Pyronite form he'd first discovered. Standing tall in the ship's cargo hold, flames dancing across his magma-like skin, Ben felt a surge of confidence. "Ready when you are," he called to Tetrax. The Petrosapien guided the ship into a narrow canyon, the drone hunters in close pursuit. At Ben's signal, Tetrax opened the cargo bay door. "Now!" Ben shouted, unleashing a massive stream of fire at the canyon walls. The intense heat caused the rock to expand and crack, sending boulders tumbling down onto the pursuing drones. Several were crushed immediately, while others had to veer off course to avoid the falling debris. "It's working!" Gwen cheered, watching through the ship's rear cameras. But their celebration was short-lived. One of the larger drones shot through the avalanche, its metallic tentacles extended toward the ship. It latched onto the hull, cutting through the outer plating with laser-tipped appendages. "We've got company," Max warned as the ship shuddered from the impact. Ben turned his fiery attention to the breach, careful not to damage the ship further. "I need to get outside. If I can heat that thing enough, I might be able to melt its circuits." "Too dangerous," Tetrax argued. "One wrong move and you'll be floating in the stratosphere." "Got a better idea?" Ben challenged. Before Tetrax could respond, the drone broke through the hull, its tentacles snaking into the cargo bay. One wrapped around Ben's flaming arm, surprisingly resistant to his heat. "Hey! Let go!" Ben struggled, increasing his body temperature until the tentacle's outer layer began to glow red. Finally, it released him, withdrawing slightly. The drone's central eye swiveled, scanning Ben. A mechanical voice emanated from it, "Omnitrix detected. Primary target acquired." More tentacles shot forward, targeting the symbol on Ben's chest. Ben fought back with waves of flame, but the drone seemed adapted to resist heat. "A little help here," he called out. Gwen stepped forward, eyes narrowed in concentration. She extended her hands, and to everyone's surprise, pinkish energy flowed from her fingertips, forming a glowing barrier between Ben and the drone. "I don't know how long I can hold this," she warned, strain evident in her voice. Tetrax didn't waste the opportunity. He fired a barrage of crystal shards at the drone's exposed underside where it had breached the hull. The crystals pierced its armor, causing it to spark and twitch. "Ben! Now!" Tetrax shouted. Understanding immediately, Ben focused all his firepower on the damaged section. The combined assault was too much. The drone exploded in a shower of molten metal and crystalline shrapnel. "Everyone okay?" Max called out once the smoke cleared. Gwen had collapsed to her knees, the energy shield dissipating. "That was intense," she breathed, looking at her hands with newfound respect. "Not bad for your first time using anodite powers," Ben commended, offering her a flaming hand before thinking better of it. I'd help you up, but..." "I'm good," Gwen assured him with a tired smile, rising to her feet. "What about the other drones?" Tetrax checked the sensors. "We've lost most of them, but they'll report our position to Vilgax. We need somewhere to regroup and plan our next move." "I know a place," Max suggested. "An old plumber base in Mount Rushmore. It's been abandoned for years, but the defenses might still be operational." "Mount Rushmore?" Ben repeated incredulously. "As in the giant stone heads?" Max nodded. "The perfect cover for an extraterrestrial monitoring station. No one questions why it's restricted or heavily secured." "Earth continues to surprise me," Tetrax remarked, setting a course for the famous landmark. As they flew, Ben reverted to his Galvan form once again, the exertion of the battle having drained the Omnitrix's charge faster than usual. He sat on the edge of a console, legs dangling, deep in thought. "Credit for your thoughts?" Max asked, sitting beside him. "Just processing," Ben replied. "Yesterday I was hiding in the RV, worried about Gwen finding out I exist. Today we're running from alien warlords and drone hunters while Gwen discovers she has alien powers too. It's a lot to take in." "You're handling it better than most would," Max assured him. "I've always known you were special, Ben. From the moment I found your pod all those years ago." Ben looked up at his guardian. "You never told me exactly how you found me." "Just that my pod crashed and you were nearby." Max's expression turned reflective. "It wasn't quite that simple. I received a message, encrypted in old plumber code that only a few people would recognize. It gave exact coordinates and a time. When I arrived, there was your pod, with you inside." Ben's large eyes widened. "Someone sent me to you specifically?" "Who?" "I never found out," Max admitted. "But whoever it was knew about my plumber background and trusted me to take care of you." The implications of this revelation swirled in Ben's mind. So my being on Earth, finding the Omnitrix, none of it was an accident. "I've been around long enough to know there are very few true accidents in this universe," Max said with a small smile. "Especially when it comes to technology as advanced as the Omnitrix." Their conversation was interrupted by Tetrax. "We're approaching Mount Rushmore. But we've got problems. I'm detecting plumber security systems, and they're active. Very active." Max frowned. "That's not right. This base was decommissioned years ago." They gathered in the cockpit, watching as the famous presidential sculptures came into view. The ship's sensors highlighted multiple defense turrets hidden within the stone features, all powered up and tracking their approach. "Someone's reactivated the base," Max observed grimly. "And they're not rolling out the welcome mat." As if to emphasize his point, warning shots blazed past the ship, narrowly missing the wings. "Evasive maneuvers," Tetrax called, banking the ship hard to the right. Ben gripped the edge of the console to avoid being thrown across the cabin. "Can we communicate with them? Let them know we're friendlies?" "I'm trying all Plummer frequencies," Max replied, working a communications panel. No response. Another volley of energy blasts rocked the ship. Tetrax struggled with the controls as systems began to fail. "We're losing stabilizers," he reported tensely. "I can't maintain altitude much longer." Ben looked at the Omnitrix, still recharging. "We need to land somewhere safe." "There," Gwen pointed to a forested area near the base of the monument. "Those trees might provide cover." Tetrax nodded grimly. "Hold on. This landing won't be gentle." The ship descended rapidly, tree branches scraping against the hull as Tetrax guided it into the densest part of the forest. With a jarring impact, they hit the ground, skidding through undergrowth before finally coming to rest against a large boulder. "Everyone okay?" Max called through the darkness, emergency lights providing minimal illumination. "Define okay," Gwen groaned, picking herself up from the floor. "Ship's damaged but reparable," Tetrax assessed, checking critical systems. "But we can't take off again without replacing the stabilizer array." Ben had been thrown from his perch during the crash, landing in a tangle of exposed wiring. He extricated himself carefully, his small size allowing him to navigate the wreckage with relative ease. "So we're stuck here," he summarized, "with Vilgax's drones hunting us from above, hostile plumbers shooting at us from the monument, and probably Dr. Onimo still out there somewhere with my DNA samples. Did I miss anything?" "Just that the Omnitrix is the most sought-after device in the galaxy, and it's attached to a 6-inch tall alien who can barely reach a doorknob without help," Gwen added dryly. "Thanks for the reminder," Ben retorted. Max was already gathering supplies from the ship's emergency stores. "We need to find out who's operating the plumber base. If they're legitimate plumbers, they might help us against Vilgax. If not, then we have another enemy to deal with," Tetrax finished grimly. "I'll stay with the ship and begin repairs. You three should scout ahead, but be cautious. Those defense systems are designed to detect alien biology." "Which means they'll pick up Ben and possibly Gwen too," Max nodded, understanding the implication. "Me?" Gwen blinked. "But I look human." "But you used your anodite abilities," Tetrax explained. "That might have activated dormant genetic markers that the sensors could detect." Ben checked the Omnitrix, which had finally recharged to green. "Then we need a disguise. Something that can mask our energy signatures." He twisted the dial thoughtfully, then stopped on a crystalline silhouette. "This might work." He slammed down the core, transforming in a flash of green light. When it faded, Ben had become a Petrosapien like Tetrax, a living being of organic crystal, though smaller and with green coloration instead of Tetrax's pale blue. "Whoa," Ben exclaimed, examining his crystalline hands. "This is what it feels like to be you, huh?" he asked Tetrax. The bounty hunter nodded. "Petrosapien biology naturally distorts scanning technology. Our crystalline structure refracts energy readings." "Perfect," Ben grinned, the expression strange on his diamond-like face. "I can carry Gwen and Max and extend my refraction field around them. The sensors might not detect us at all." "Clever," Tetrax acknowledged. "But be careful. Vilgax knows all the weaknesses of each species in the Omnitrix. Petrosapiens are strong but vulnerable to sonic attacks." "Noted," Ben replied, then turned to Max and Gwen. "All aboard the Ben Express." Max chuckled despite the tension. "Just like when you were little," except now you're carrying us for a change. With Max and Gwen secured on his crystalline shoulders, Ben made his way out of the crashed ship. The forest was dark, but his Petrosapien form came with enhanced night vision. The world appeared in shades of infrared, allowing him to navigate easily between trees. The entrance to the base should be about half a mile east, Max directed. Hidden behind a holographic projection of solid rock. They moved quietly through the forest, Ben adjusting to the strange sensation of having passengers. His crystalline body was incredibly strong, making the weight of two humans barely noticeable. So, Gwen whispered as they walked, if I'm part Anodite, and the Omnitrix turns you into alternate versions of yourself, does that mean in some reality, you're an Anodite too? Ben considered this. I guess it's possible. The Omnitrix seems to have DNA samples from across the galaxy. Try not to think about it too hard, Max advised. Alternate realities can give you a headache. As they approached the base of the monument, Ben's enhanced vision detected movement ahead, humanoid figures in what appeared to be tactical gear, patrolling the perimeter with advanced weaponry. We've got company, he warned, ducking behind a large tree. Humans, but with tech that's definitely not standard issue. Max peered around the trunk. Those aren't plumber uniforms I recognize. Something's wrong. Maybe the base was compromised. Gwen suggested. Or someone's using it for their own purposes, Max replied grimly. We need to get inside and find out what's happening. Ben studied the patrol patterns, formulating a plan. The guards are moving in 5-minute rotations. If we time it right, we can slip between their routes and reach the entrance. Look at you, all tactical, Gwen teased. Hey, I've spent my life hiding from humans, Ben reminded her. Stealth is kind of my specialty. They waited for the right moment, then moved quickly between patrol routes. Ben's crystalline form glinted slightly in the moonlight, but he kept to the shadows as much as possible. When they reached the base of the monument, Max guided them to a section of rock that looked no different from the surrounding area. It's here, he insisted, running his hands over the stone surface. The holographic projector must still be working. Ben touched the rock, and to his surprise, his crystalline hand passed right through. Found it. They slipped through the illusory barrier into a dark tunnel beyond. Max produced a small flashlight from his pocket, illuminating a passageway that sloped downward into the mountain. The main control center is several levels down, Max explained as they descended. If someone's reactivated the base, that's where they'll be. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber filled with technology, some recognizably human, some clearly alien in origin. Everything was powered up, lights blinking and displays showing data streams that Ben found he could partially understand in his current form. This equipment is monitoring something, he observed, examining a console. Looks like they're tracking energy signatures across the country. The Omnitrix? Gwen suggested. Max shook his head, studying another display. Not just the Omnitrix. These are scanning for multiple alien energy patterns. It's almost like they're hunting. A door at the far end of the chamber slid open suddenly, flooding the room with light. Ben instinctively moved to shield Max and Gwen as a figure stepped through. I was wondering when you'd show up, Tennyson, a cold voice remarked. Though I admit, I expected you to come alone, not with a Petrosapien and a child. Max tensed, recognition flashing across his face. Phil Billings. The newcomer stepped fully into the light, a man in his 50s with a military bearing and cold eyes. He wore what appeared to be modified plumber armor with additional weapon systems integrated into the design. The one and only, Phil confirmed with a humorless smile. Surprised to see me? Last I heard, you were dishonorably discharged from the plumbers for trying to use alien technology for personal gain, Max replied warily. Phil's smile twisted into something ugly. Always the Boy Scout, weren't you, Max? Following every rule while I saw the bigger picture. Do you have any idea what humans could accomplish with the technology we confiscated? The advances we could make? At what cost? Max challenged. Progress always has a price, Phil shrugged, then turned his attention to Ben. But enough about old times. I'm more interested in your crystalline friend here. My sensors detected the Omnitrix activation. Quite the prize you found. Ben stiffened, realizing that despite his Petrosapien disguise, Phil had somehow identified the Omnitrix. I don't know what you're talking about, he bluffed. Please, Phil scoffed. I've been monitoring Plummer communications for years. The rumors about Asmitha's device were too intriguing to ignore. When it activated near Bellwood, Max's hometown, coincidentally, I knew it was only a matter of time before you showed up. More armed figures entered the chamber, surrounding them with weapons raised. Ben counted at least 10, all wielding technology that looked capable of seriously damaging even his crystalline form. So what's your plan, Phil? Max asked, buying time as Ben subtly positioned himself for a potential fight. Steal the Omnitrix. Sell it to the highest bidder. Nothing so short-sighted, Phil replied. I've established quite the operation here. Capturing alien fugitives, studying their biology, adapting their technology for human use. The Omnitrix represents the ultimate research opportunity, access to the genetic code of dozens, perhaps hundreds of species. You're no better than Onimo, Ben growled, his voice resonating through his crystalline form. Phil's eyebrows rose. The Petrosapien speaks English? Interesting. Most of your kind rely on translators. His eyes narrowed suddenly. Unless, you're not actually a Petrosapien, are you? Before Ben could respond, Phil pressed a button on his wrist device. A high-pitched sonic pulse filled the chamber, sending excruciating pain through Ben's crystalline body. He dropped to one knee, his form beginning to develop cracks. Sonic disruption, Phil explained casually. Petrosapiens have such a fascinating vulnerability to certain frequencies. Stop it. Gwen shouted, stepping in front of Ben protectively. To everyone's surprise, pinkish energy began to glow around her hands. Leave him alone. Phil's eyes widened. An anodite hybrid? On Earth? This day just gets more interesting. He adjusted a dial on his wrist device. Let's see how you handle this frequency, young lady. A different pulse emanated from the device, this one causing Gwen to clutch her head in pain, the energy around her hands dissipating. Both of you, stop. Max demanded, stepping between Phil and the children. This isn't who you are, Phil. You were a plumber, sworn to protect. I'm still protecting, Max, Phil replied coldly. Protecting humanity by ensuring we have the tools to defend ourselves when the invasion finally comes. And it is coming, you know that better than most. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began flashing red, the transformation was about to time out. In desperation, he launched crystal shards from his arms at the ceiling lights, plunging the room into darkness just as the red flash of his reversion illuminated the chamber for a split second. Chaos erupted as the guards fired blindly into the darkness. Max took advantage of the confusion to grab Ben, now back in his tiny Galvan form, and Gwen, pulling them toward a side passage he remembered from his plumber days. This way, he hissed, leading them through the dark corridor as alarms began blaring throughout the base. Seal all exits. Phil's voice commanded over the intercom. The Omnitrix wielder is a Galvan. I repeat, we're looking for a Galvan. They raced through the narrow passage, Max carrying Ben in one hand while Gwen followed close behind. The tunnel began to slope upward. This maintenance shaft should lead to the surface, Max explained breathlessly. Used for emergency evacuations. What about Tetrax? Ben asked, clutching Max's thumb to avoid falling. We can't leave him. He knows how to find us, Max assured him. Right now, we need to focus on getting you two out of here. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them, boots on metal, voices calling out coordinates. Phil's men were closing in. The Omnitrix is still recharging, Ben informed them anxiously. I can't transform again yet. Then we do this the old-fashioned way, Max replied, reaching a junction in the tunnel and making a decision. Gwen, can you use your powers to create a distraction? Gwen looked uncertain. I don't know how I did it before. It just happened. Focus on what you felt, Max encouraged her. The energy is inside you, you just need to direct it. Gwen closed her eyes, concentrating. After a tense moment, her hands began to glow faintly with pink energy. I feel it, she whispered, but I don't know how to control it. Aim for that pipe, Max suggested, pointing to a steam conduit running along the ceiling behind them. If you can rupture it, the steam will cover our escape. Gwen extended her hands, focusing her will on the pipe. The pink energy wavered, then shot forth in an uneven burst that struck the conduit. Metal groaned, then split with a hiss as superheated steam flooded the tunnel behind them. Good job. Ben called as Max resumed their flight upward. They emerged from the tunnel into the cool night air, finding themselves on the forested slope of Mount Rushmore, away from the main tourist areas. In the distance, they could see patrols with searchlights combing the woods. We need to get back to Tetrax's ship, Max said, already moving toward the tree line. But Phil's men will be looking for us, Gwen pointed out, following close behind. Then we'll have to be smarter than them, Max replied grimly. They made their way carefully through the forest, avoiding patrols and using the dense undergrowth for cover. Ben, from his perch on Max's shoulder, kept watch for movement while the Omnitrix slowly recharged. Something's bothering me, Ben whispered as they paused behind a fallen tree to let a patrol pass. Phil knew about the Omnitrix, but how did he know it was here? We only arrived a few hours ago. Good question, Max acknowledged. Someone must have tipped him off. Or he's working with someone else, Gwen suggested. Maybe even this Vilgax you've mentioned. Max shook his head. Phil might be misguided, but he wouldn't ally with Vilgax. He's too much of a human supremacist for that. Then who? Ben wondered. Their speculation was cut short as a familiar roar echoed through the forest. Ben's heart sank as he recognized the sound. Onimo's chimeras, he groaned. They followed us here. How is that possible? Gwen asked. We were in a spaceship. They were created with my DNA, Ben reminded her. Maybe they can track me somehow. As if confirming his theory, crashing sounds approached their position, something large moving through the underbrush directly toward them. They abandoned stealth, running through the forest as fast as Max and Gwen could manage. Ben held on tight to Max's collar, his tiny form bouncing with each stride. They burst into a clearing and came face to face with not one but three of Onimo's chimera creatures, the same ones that had attacked them at the laboratory. Behind them stood Dr. Onimo himself, riding atop a mutated mountain lion the size of a small elephant. There you are, my diminutive friend, Onimo called, his voice gleeful. Did you think I'd give up so easily? Your DNA is far too valuable for that. Onimo, Max growled, pushing Gwen behind him protectively. How did you find us? The scientist held up a device that pulsed with green light. A simple tracker, calibrated to the unique genetic signature I harvested from our little Galvan. Quite effective, wouldn't you say? He gestured to the chimeras. And my improved creations were most helpful in following the trail. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, still not fully recharged. We could really use Tetrax right about now, he muttered. As if on cue, a barrage of crystal shards flew from the trees, striking the nearest chimera and driving it back. Tetrax emerged from the forest, his body showing signs of recent damage but his stance ready for battle. Sorry I'm late, the Petrosapien said, taking position beside Max, your ship repairs had to wait. Perfect timing, Ben grinned. Onimo scowled at the newcomer. A Petrosapien? How fascinating. Another specimen for my collection. I don't think so, Tetrax replied coldly, launching more crystal projectiles at the scientist. Onimo's mount leaped aside with surprising agility. "Attack," he commanded, and the chimeras charged forward. Tetrax engaged the first creature, his crystalline body absorbing hits that would have crushed a human. Max pulled Gwen toward the edge of the clearing, trying to circle around the battle. "We need to keep moving," he urged. "Get back to the ship." One of the chimeras noticed their movement and bounded after them, cutting off their escape route. Gwen stumbled back, falling to the ground as the creature loomed over her. "Gwen!" Ben shouted from Max's shoulder. In that moment, the Omnitrix finally pulsed green, fully recharged. Without hesitation, Ben twisted the dial to the first silhouette he could find and slammed it down. Green light enveloped him as he leaped from Max's shoulder, transforming in midair. He landed between Gwen and the Chimera as a massive, tiger-like alien with no eyes, powerful jaws, and orange fur with black stripes. "Whoa," Ben growled, his voice deep and feral in this new form. "I can't see, but I can sense everything." It was true, despite having no visible eyes, his awareness of his surroundings was sharper than ever. He could feel vibrations through the ground, smell each individual present, and sense heat signatures with incredible precision. The Chimera hesitated, confronted with this new predatory form. Ben didn't waste the opportunity. He lunged forward, powerful muscles propelling him into the creature with tremendous force. They rolled across the clearing, claws and teeth flashing. "Ben!" Gwen called out anxiously. "I'm good." Ben shouted back, his new form's natural fighting instincts guiding his movements. "Help Max." Gwen turned to see her grandfather grappling with another chimera, using his plumber combat training to stay one step ahead of the creature's attacks. She concentrated, trying to summon the energy she'd accessed before. "Come on," she muttered, focusing on her hands. "Work." Pink energy flickered around her fingers, weak and unstable. Frustrated, Gwen tried to remember how she'd felt when Ben was in danger, the protective surge, the desperate need to help. Max dodged a swipe from the chimera's claws but stumbled on uneven ground. The creature pounced, pinning him down with one massive paw. "Grandpa!" Gwen shouted, and suddenly the energy surged forth, stronger than before. It formed a whip-like tendril that wrapped around the chimera's leg, yanking it off Max and throwing it into a nearby tree. "That's it, Gwen." Max encouraged, scrambling to his feet. "You're getting it." Meanwhile, Ben was discovering the full capabilities of his new Volpomancer form. His enhanced senses allowed him to anticipate the chimera's every move, countering with natural precision. With a final powerful tackle, he sent the creature crashing into the underbrush. "These forms are getting cooler every time," he growled appreciatively. Tetrax was holding his own against the third chimera, using his crystal generation abilities to trap the creature's limbs. "We need to deal with Onimo," he called out. "These creatures won't stop while he's controlling them." Ben turned his sensory pits toward the scientist, who was observing the battle from atop his mutated mount. "On it!" He bounded across the clearing in powerful leaps, closing in on Onimo with predatory focus. The scientist's eyes widened in alarm as he realized he was the target. "Stay back!" Onimo commanded, pulling a device from his coat. "One press of this button will cause my chimeras to self-destruct, taking all of you with them." Ben skidded to a halt, growling low in his throat. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Onimo's finger hovered over the button. "I've implanted explosive compounds in their genetic structure. A failsafe, in case they ever turned against me." "You'd kill your own creations." Ben snarled, disgusted. "They're experiments, nothing more," Onimo replied coldly. "Replaceable, unlike the data I could gather from you." The standoff was interrupted by a series of energy blasts that struck the ground around them. Searchlights swept the clearing as Phil's men emerged from the forest, weapons trained on everyone present. "Nobody move." Phil's voice commanded as he stepped into the light. Well. What have we here?" Dr. Onimo, a Petrosapian, and His eyes fixed on Ben's Volpomancer form, the Omnitrix wielder in yet another form. My lucky day. Plumbers. Onimo spat. I should have known you'd be involved. Former plumber, Phil corrected with a cold smile. Now I run a more profitable operation. He gestured to his men. Secure them all. The aliens go to containment level 3. The humans to interrogation. Ben growled, instinctively moving to protect Max and Gwen. The chimeras, sensing the new threat, formed a defensive circle around Onimo. I'm not going anywhere with you, the scientist declared. These specimens are mine. Your claim has been noted and denied, Phil replied dismissively. He raised his wrist device. Now, let's see how your mutants handle this frequency. He pressed a button, and a high-pitched sound filled the clearing. The chimeras howled in pain, their hybrid forms particularly vulnerable to the sonic attack. Even Ben's Volpomancer hearing was affected, causing him to snarl in discomfort. Everyone cover your ears. Max shouted. In the confusion, Tetrax seized the opportunity. He drove his crystalline fist into the ground, sending a wave of crystal growth radiating outward that knocked Phil's men off balance. The sonic device faltered as Phil struggled to maintain his footing. Now's our chance. Tetrax called. Run. Onimo, seeing his chimeras weakened, made his own escape, his mount bounding into the forest with surprising speed. Phil's men regrouped quickly, opening fire with energy weapons that scorched the ground around the fleeing group. This way. Max directed, leading them toward a rocky outcropping that offered some cover from the barrage. Ben used his massive Volpomancer form to shield Gwen, feeling energy blasts impact his tough hide. It hurt, but not enough to slow him down. Tetrax brought up the rear, deflecting shots with crystal shields grown from his arms. They reached the outcropping and ducked behind it, momentarily safe from the energy weapons. Ben checked the Omnitrix symbol on his shoulder, still green, but he could feel the transformation would end soon. We can't outrun them, Max observed grimly, peering around the rocks at the approaching forces. And we're still too far from the ship. I have an idea, Ben growled, but it's risky. I need to try another form. In the middle of a fight? Gwen questioned. What if you get something useless? Then we're no worse off than we are now, Ben reasoned, already turning the Omnitrix dial with his teeth, the Volpomancer's lack of hands making it awkward but not impossible. He selected a silhouette that appeared humanoid with a large, bulbous head. Here goes nothing, he managed to say before slapping the symbol with his paw. Green light flashed as Ben transformed yet again. When it faded, he had become a gray-skinned humanoid with a massive cranium, spindly limbs, and large green eyes. Whoa, he breathed, his voice higher and more nasally in this form. I feel smart. Like, really smart. Complex equations and possibilities flooded his mind, analyzing their situation with computational precision. A Galvan intellect. Tetrax identified, looking impressed. One of the most intelligent species in the galaxy. Different from my normal Galvan form, Ben noted, his speech patterns more complex and articulated. Fascinating. The parallel timeline variations must account for the distinction in phenotypical expression. English, please. Gwen requested. Sorry. I think I can get us out of this, Ben explained, his large eyes scanning their surroundings. Tetrax, I need your help. Can you create a crystalline structure according to my specifications? Of course, the Petrosapien nodded. Ben quickly outlined his plan, his enhanced intellect allowing him to explain complex physics in simple terms. Tetrax began forming crystal structures according to Ben's design, while Max and Gwen gathered materials from the surrounding area. Phil's men had nearly reached their position, spreading out to surround the outcropping. You have nowhere to run. Phil called. Surrender the Omnitrix, and the rest of you might walk away. Ready? Ben asked, checking his improvised device, a crystalline structure that resembled a satellite dish with various forest materials integrated into its design. As will ever be, Max confirmed, positioning himself as instructed. Ben activated the device, which began to emit a complex harmonic frequency. The sound was barely audible to human ears, but its effect on the environment was immediate and dramatic. The ground trembled as localized gravitational fields fluctuated, creating a disorienting effect that sent Phil's men staggering in confusion. "Now!" Ben shouted. "Run for the ship. The effect won't last long." They sprinted through the forest, the gravitational disturbance covering their escape. Behind them, Phil's voice could be heard shouting orders that quickly faded into the distance. "That was brilliant!" Gwen exclaimed as they ran. "What did you do?" "Created a localized graviton wave. That temporarily disrupted the electromagnetic," Ben began to explain, then caught himself. "I made gravity go weird for a minute." "Whatever you did, it worked," Max said proudly. "Tetrax, how far to the ship?" "Not far," the Petrosapien replied, leading them through the trees. "But we should hurry. Phil will regroup quickly." They reached Tetrax's crashed ship just as Ben's transformation timed out. In a flash of red light, he reverted to his natural Galvan form, suddenly tiny once again. "Perfect timing," he quipped as Max scooped him up. Tetrax hurried to the ship's controls, initiating emergency power systems. "The repairs I managed earlier should give us enough power for one short flight." "Where to?" "Somewhere Phil won't expect," Max suggested, strapping himself into a seat. "What about the old mining facility in the Navajo desert?" "It's remote, and it has equipment we might be able to use." Setting course, Tetrax confirmed, activating the engines. The ship rose unsteadily, damaged stabilizers causing it to wobble as it gained altitude. Ben climbed onto the console, examining the ship's diagnostics with his natural Galvan technical aptitude. "The energy couplings are misaligned. I can reroute power through secondary systems to compensate." As he worked, Gwen stared out the view screen at the receding forest. "So we have a crazy scientist, a rogue plumber, and an alien warlord all after us now. Great vacation so far." "Welcome to my life," Ben replied without looking up from his work. "At least you're not the one everyone wants to dissect." "No, I'm just the one who apparently has alien energy powers I can't control," Gwen retorted, looking at her hands thoughtfully. Max placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You'll learn, Gwen. Your grandmother mastered her abilities through practice and focus." "Did you know?" she asked suddenly. "When you sent me to stay with you this summer, did you know all this would happen?" Max shook his head. The Omnitrix was a surprise to everyone. "But..." He hesitated. "I did hope that spending time around Ben might help awaken your Anodite heritage. It sometimes requires exposure to other energy patterns to activate." "So you were planning to tell me about Ben eventually?" Gwen pressed. "And about your grandmother," Max confirmed. "I just didn't expect it all to happen in the first 24 hours. Ben finished his adjustments, the ship's flight smoothing out noticeably. "That should hold until we reach the desert." He turned to Tetrax. "So what's the plan once we get there?" "We can't run forever." Tetrax's crystalline features were grim. "If Vilgax is truly coming, running isn't an option anyway. He won't stop until he has the Omnitrix." "Then we need to understand what this thing really is," Ben said, looking down at the device on his wrist. "And why it found me specifically." "I've been thinking about that," Max said slowly. "Ben, when I found your pod 13 years ago, there was a symbol on it, a symbol I've only seen in one other place." "Let me guess," Ben replied, "the Omnitrix." Max nodded. "Identical. I always assumed it was a standard Galvan marking, but now I'm not so sure." "Asmatha's personal sigil," Tetrax identified. "He marks all his major creations with it." Ben's eyes widened. "Are you saying Asmath, the creator of the Omnitrix, sent me to Earth?" It would explain why the device sought you out, Tetrax reasoned. And why it adapted to your Galvan physiology so perfectly. The implications were staggering. Ben sat down on the console, his tiny form suddenly looking very small indeed. But why? Why send a baby Galvan to Earth with a human guardian? Why create a device that shows me alternate versions of myself? None of this makes sense. Perhaps the answers are in the Omnitrix itself, Tetrax suggested. If we could decode more of its programming. Before Ben could respond, the ship's sensors blared a warning. A massive energy signature had been detected entering Earth's atmosphere, far larger than the drones they'd encountered earlier. It's him, Tetrax said grimly, checking the readings. Vilgax's command ship has arrived. The view screen showed a massive vessel breaking through the clouds, its design angular and predatory. Even from a distance, it dwarfed any human spacecraft, bristling with weapons and emanating an aura of menace. Change of plans, Max decided. We need somewhere with better defenses than an abandoned mine. Somewhere Vilgax won't expect. Like where? Gwen asked nervously. Max's expression was determined as he took the ship's controls. Like right under his nose. Set course for Bellwood. Bellwood? Ben repeated incredulously. That's the first place they'll look. Exactly why they might not look there immediately, Max explained. Plus, I have access to something there that might help us understand the Omnitrix better. What's that? Ben asked. Max's smile was enigmatic. Let's just say I never quite turned in all my plumber equipment when I retired. As the ship changed course, heading back toward the small town where their journey had begun, Ben stared at the Omnitrix thoughtfully. Whatever it was designed to do, whoever had sent him to Earth all those years ago, the answers were out there. And one way or another, he was going to find them. Hang on, Tetrax warned as the ship accelerated. We've got company. On the sensors, multiple smaller craft had launched from Vilgax's ship, pursuing them through the night sky. The race was on, and the fate of the Omnitrix, and possibly Earth itself, hung in the balance. Chapter 3, Worlds Collide, Get Down. Max yelled as energy blasts rocked Tetrax's ship, sending Ben tumbling across the console. The tiny Galvan grabbed onto a lever to keep from being thrown into the wall as the ship lurched violently to the left. We've got 6 pursuit craft on our tail, Tetrax reported, his crystalline hands working the controls with surprising dexterity. All armed with level 5 energy weapons. Gwen braced herself against her seat. I'm guessing that's bad. Level 5 can vaporize small moons, Ben called from the console. So yeah, pretty bad. Another blast clipped the ship's wing, sending them into a spinning dive. Through the view screen, the lights of Bellwood appeared, growing rapidly as they plummeted toward Earth. I can't maintain flight control. Tetrax shouted. Crash positions. Max grabbed Ben, tucking the tiny alien securely against his chest as he pulled Gwen close with his other arm. Hang on, kids. The ship smashed through a line of trees before skidding across an empty baseball field, carving a deep furrow in the earth before finally grinding to a halt near a cluster of storage buildings at the edge of Bellwood Park. For a moment, silence filled the wrecked craft. Then Ben wriggled free from Max's protective grip, shaking dust from his gray skin. Everyone okay? Define okay, Gwen groaned, extracting herself from the tangle of safety webbing. A thin trickle of blood ran from a cut on her forehead, but she didn't seem to notice. Did we lose them? Tetrax checked the damaged sensors. Temporarily. They're still in the area, searching. We need to move before they pick up our energy signature again. Max helped Gwen to her feet, then pressed a small section of wall near the ship's exit ramp. A hidden compartment slid open, revealing several compact devices. Take these. Plumber standard issue personal cloaking fields. They'll mask your energy signatures from Vilgax's scanners. You keep plumber tech in other people's spaceships. Ben asked, accepting the tiny device that Max had modified to fit his Galvan proportions. I keep plumber tech everywhere, Max replied with a hint of pride. He fastened a device to Gwen's wrist, then his own. Old habits die hard. They exited the ship into the cool night air. The park was deserted at this late hour, the crash site hidden from immediate view by the maintenance buildings. We need to get to my storage unit, Max said, orienting himself. It's about half a mile from here. You mean that place where you keep all your fishing gear? Gwen asked. Max's smile was cryptic. Among other things. They moved quickly through the darkened park, keeping to the shadows. Ben rode on Max's shoulder, his large eyes providing better night vision than his human companions. Above them, the faint hum of Vilgax's scout ships could be heard as they patrolled the area. So what exactly are we looking for in your storage unit? Ben whispered as they paused to let a search beam sweep past. Something I salvaged during my plumber days, Max explained. A Galvan data decoder. If anyone left information hidden in the Omnitrix, that device might help us find it. And you've just had advanced alien tech sitting in a storage unit all these years? Gwen asked incredulously. Where better to hide it? Max countered. Government facilities get raided. High-security locations attract attention. But nobody looks twice at an old man's storage unit full of camping gear. They reached the edge of the park, but the street beyond was illuminated by streetlights, too exposed for comfort. Tetrax knelt beside a storm drain. The sewer system, he suggested. It might lead us closer to our destination without exposing us. Sewers? Gwen wrinkled her nose. Seriously? Hey, I'm the one with enhanced olfactory senses, Ben reminded her, tapping his large Galvan nose. If I can handle it, so can you. Tetrax removed the grate and they descended into the dimly lit tunnel below. The sewer was surprisingly dry, Bellwood hadn't seen rain in weeks, making their passage easier than expected. According to my geological survey, this tunnel runs parallel to Elm Street, Tetrax noted, consulting a holographic map projected from his armor. Perfect, Max nodded. My storage unit is just off Elm, near the old factory district. They walked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds their footsteps and the occasional distant rumble of Vilgax's ships overhead. The concrete tunnel eventually opened into a larger junction chamber where multiple passages converged. Which way? Gwen asked. Before Max could answer, a new sound reached them, voices echoing from a tunnel to their left, accompanied by the splashing of approaching footsteps. Someone's coming, Ben hissed. Hide. They ducked into a recessed maintenance alcove as the voices grew louder. 3 teenagers emerged into the junction, laughing and shoving each other. The leader, a lanky boy with dark hair, carried what looked like a crowbar. I'm telling you, man, the cash register in that convenience store will be easy pickings, he was saying. Security cameras been busted for weeks. I don't know, Kevin, one of his companions replied nervously. Breaking and entering is serious jail time. Only if you get caught, Kevin scoffed. He stopped suddenly, his head tilting as though listening. Wait. Someone's here. From their hiding place, Tetrax shifted slightly, his crystalline body making a faint scraping sound against the concrete. Kevin's head snapped toward their alcove. Who's there? He demanded, raising the crowbar. Come out now. Max made a quick decision, stepping forward with his hands raised non-threateningly. Just passing through, son. No trouble. Kevin eyed the older man suspiciously. Little old for sewer exploring, aren't you, Gramps? Gwen emerged behind Max, giving the teenagers an unimpressed look. And a little young for breaking and entering, aren't you? Mind your own business, Kevin snapped, but his eyes lingered on Gwen with unexpected interest before hardening again. This is our turf. Pay the toll or turn around. We don't have time for this, Tetrax growled, stepping into the light. The effect was immediate. All three teenagers recoiled at the sight of the crystalline alien, but while his companions backed away in terror, Kevin's reaction was different. His expression shifted from shock to calculated interest in the span of a heartbeat. "What are you?" he asked, lowering the crowbar slightly. "Someone you don't want to mess with," Tetrax replied coolly. To everyone's surprise, Kevin grinned. "Actually, that's exactly who I want to mess with." He lunged forward suddenly, dropping the crowbar and grabbing Tetrax's arm with both hands. What happened next defied explanation. Kevin's skin began to crystallize, taking on the same properties as Tetrax's body. The transformation spread from his hands up his arms until he stood before them as a half-human, half-Petrosapien hybrid. "Now that's more like it," Kevin laughed, admiring his transformed limbs. "Energy absorption?" Ben whispered from his hiding spot on Max's shoulder. "That's not a human ability." Kevin's eyes locked onto the source of the tiny voice. "What else have you got hiding there, old man?" He stepped forward aggressively. Max reached for a concealed plumber weapon, but before he could draw it, Gwen stepped between them, pink energy instinctively flaring around her hands. "Back off," she warned, her voice steadier than she felt. Kevin stopped, genuinely surprised by this new development. "What are you people?" "That's what I'd like to know about you," Max replied, studying the boy with the practiced eye of a veteran plumber. "Human-born energy absorbers are extremely rare." Kevin's crystalline hand formed into a blade, mirroring an ability he'd absorbed from Tetrax. "I'm one of a kind," he declared, though something in his tone suggested this wasn't a source of pride. His companions had long since fled, leaving Kevin alone facing the strange group. Ben made a quick decision, hopping down from Max's shoulder and stepping into full view. "So are we," he said, knowing his tiny Galvan form would catch Kevin off guard. The teenager stared at Ben in disbelief. "What the, you're like 6 inches tall." "And smarter than everyone in this tunnel combined," Ben replied confidently. "Name's Ben. The crystal guy is Tetrax. The humans are Max and Gwen." "Why are you telling him our names?" Gwen hissed. "Because we might need his help," Ben replied quietly. Kevin's transformation was already fading, the crystalline properties receding as his body returned to normal. "Help with what?" he asked, suspicious but undeniably curious. "Alien warlord. End of the world." "The usual," Ben shrugged his tiny shoulders. "But we're kind of in a hurry, so either help us or get out of our way." Kevin laughed, but there was less hostility in it now. "You've got guts for a little gray dude." He considered for a moment, then gestured down the tunnel. "Where are you headed?" "Storage facility on Elm," Max said, still watching Kevin warily. "I know a shortcut," Kevin offered. "Maintenance tunnel comes up right behind it. No cameras, no street exposure." Max and Tetrax exchanged glances, silently debating whether to trust this unpredictable teenager. Finally, Max nodded. "Lead the way. But try anything, and you'll learn why I was the most decorated plumber in the sector." "Plumber?" Kevin snorted. "What, you gonna fix the alien warlord's toilet?" "Not that kind of plumber," Ben, Gwen, and Max said in unison. Kevin led them through a narrow side passage that twisted and turned beneath the streets of Bellwood. Despite his tough exterior, the teenager repeatedly glanced back at Tetrax and Ben with poorly concealed fascination. "So what's your deal?" he finally asked Ben. "Born that way, or some kind of alien shrink-ray accident?" "Born a Galvan," Ben replied. "Raised on Earth. It's a long story. And this alien warlord is after you because..." Ben raised his wrist, showing the Omnitrix. "Because of this." Kevin peered at the watch-like device. "Looks like a weird watch." "It's called the Omnitrix," Ben explained. "Most powerful device in the galaxy, apparently. It lets me transform into different alien species." Kevin's eyebrows shot up. "For real? Like, you can turn into something like him?" He jerked a thumb at Tetrax. And 9 other forms so far, Ben nodded. Still figuring out what they all do. Something shifted in Kevin's expression, a flash of envy, quickly masked by studied indifference. Sounds handy. It's a massive responsibility, Tetrax corrected sternly. Not a toy. Kevin rolled his eyes but said nothing more as they continued through the tunnel. Finally, he stopped at a metal ladder leading up to a manhole cover. This comes up behind the storage facility, he informed them. Used to crash in one of the empty units sometimes. Security's a joke. Thanks for your help, Max said, his tone suggesting Kevin was now free to leave. Kevin crossed his arms. I'm coming with you. No, you're not, Gwen said firmly. Look, I just saw a walking crystal man, a tiny gray alien that turns into other aliens, and a girl who can make pink energy appear out of nowhere, Kevin countered. You really think I'm just gonna walk away from that? Yes, Tetrax growled. We don't have time to argue, Max interrupted, checking his watch. Vilgax's ships will have triangulated our crash site by now. They'll be expanding their search grid. He looked at Kevin thoughtfully. Your ability could be useful if we run into trouble. Grandpa. Gwen protested. I don't trust him either, Max assured her, but right now we need all the help we can get. Kevin smirked triumphantly at Gwen, who glared back. Ben observed the interaction with interest, noticing how Kevin's attitude shifted subtly when addressing Gwen, the edge in his voice softening just fractionally. They climbed the ladder one by one, emerging behind a row of storage units just as a search beam swept the street beyond. Max led them to Unit 27, producing a key from his pocket. Everyone inside, quickly, he urged, unlocking the padlock. The storage unit looked ordinary enough at first glance: camping equipment, fishing gear, boxes of old clothes and books. But Max went straight to the back wall, pressing his hand against a seemingly random spot. A biometric scanner hummed to life, confirming his identity before the entire back wall slid aside, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. No way, Kevin breathed, genuinely impressed for the first time. Secret Agent Grandpa. The hidden room was filled with technology clearly not of Earth origin. Weapons, communication devices, scanners, and other unidentifiable equipment lined the walls in neatly organized sections. Welcome to my unofficial retirement fund, Max said, moving to a workbench where a device resembling a crystalline computer sat covered in a protective case. The Galvan decoder. Let's hope it still works after all these years. Ben hopped onto the workbench, examining the device with professional interest. Quantum interface technology. Nice. This looks like it predates the unified Galvan tech protocols, though. Maybe 30 Earth years old. Salvaged it during a mission to Galvan Prime, Max confirmed, carefully removing the protective covering. One of the few times non-Galvans were permitted to visit the homeworld. You've been to my species' planet? Ben asked, surprised. You never told me that. Some stories I've been saving, Max replied with a small smile. He connected a power source to the device, which hummed to life with a soft blue glow. Now, let's see what secrets the Omnitrix is hiding. Kevin wandered around the room, examining the alien technology with undisguised interest. Tetrax watched him closely, ready to intervene if the teenager tried to pocket anything. This should create an interface between the Omnitrix and the decoder, Max explained, producing a small adapter. Ben, place your wrist here. Ben positioned his arm as instructed, allowing the Omnitrix to connect with the Galvan device. Immediately, streams of data began flowing across the holographic display that projected above the workbench. Whoa, Gwen whispered, watching the complex symbols and diagrams swirl in three-dimensional patterns. Can anyone actually read that? Some of it, Ben replied, his large Galvan eyes tracking the information with practiced ease. It's highly advanced technical Galvan, even by my standards, but I'm getting the gist. What's it saying? Max asked, unable to interpret the alien script. Ben's expression grew increasingly astonished as he processed the information. It's a message, from Azimuth himself. Addressed to me specifically. He paused, trying to organize his thoughts. According to this, I wasn't just randomly sent to Earth. I was placed here intentionally, as part of something called the Convergence Initiative. What's that? Gwen asked. A plan to create bridges between worlds, Ben translated slowly. Azimuth believed that the greatest threat to galactic peace wasn't weapons or wars, but misunderstanding between species. He created the Omnitrix as a tool for empathy, to allow beings to literally walk in each other's skin. And you were sent as some kind of test subject? Max frowned, not liking the implication. No, not exactly, Ben corrected, still scanning the data. I was sent as an ambassador. The first of what Azimuth hoped would be many. A Galvan raised among humans, who could understand both perspectives inherently. He looked up at Max, his large eyes wide with realization. You were specifically chosen as my guardian because of your plumber history, your proven record of working with alien species respectfully. Max sat heavily on a nearby crate. All these years, I thought finding your pod was coincidence, being in the right place at the right time. There are no coincidences with Azimuth, Tetrax commented. Everything is calculated to the finest detail. But why didn't he just tell you this from the beginning? Gwen wondered. Why all the secrecy? Ben continued translating. He says the experiment needed to be authentic. I had to develop naturally within human society, forming genuine bonds, not seeing myself as part of some grand experiment. A small smile formed on his Galvan face. He says my development has exceeded expectations. And the Omnitrix? Tetrax pressed. Why create a device that transforms you into alternate versions of yourself? Because I'm unique, Ben realized, the pieces falling into place. A Galvan with human perspective. The Omnitrix was programmed to find me specifically once I reached adolescence, the point where my worldview would be developed enough to handle the responsibility. It shows me alternate versions of myself to remind me that our species is just one path among many possible paths. That's, actually kind of beautiful, Gwen admitted. Kevin, who had been suspiciously quiet, finally spoke up. So Alien Genius sends baby alien to Earth with Superwatch as part of Peace Project. Great origin story. But how does this help with the warlord trying to kill us all right now? Vilgax, Ben nodded, refocusing on the immediate threat. According to this data, the Omnitrix has additional functions I haven't unlocked yet, defensive protocols that activate when the user is in extreme danger. Like a failsafe? Max asked. More like. Ben searched for the right term, an evolutionary function. The ability to adapt in response to threats. A deep rumbling overhead interrupted their conversation. Dust shook from the ceiling as what felt like an earthquake vibrated through the building. That's not Vilgax's scout ships, Tetrax said grimly, checking a scanner on his arm. That's his command vessel. He's landing. Kevin moved to the unit's small window, peering through a crack in the blinds. Guys? There's a massive shadow covering half the town. His usual bravado had vanished, replaced by genuine alarm. Max quickly began gathering select pieces of equipment from his collection. We need to move again. If Vilgax is landing his command ship, he's done with the subtle approach. Where can we go? Gwen asked. He'll tear the town apart looking for us. Ben stared at the still-flowing data from the Omnitrix, a plan forming in his mind. We don't run. We take the fight to him. Are you insane? Kevin demanded. You've never even seen this Vilgax dude, and you want to what, knock on his front door? Actually, that's exactly what we're going to do, Ben replied, his tone surprisingly confident for a 6-inch tall alien. According to this data, there's a weakness in Vilgax's ship design, a vulnerability in the ventral cooling systems that a small enough being could exploit. Like a Galvan, Tetrax realized. Precisely, Ben nodded. I can infiltrate the ship, access the main control systems, and trigger an emergency lockdown that would trap Vilgax inside his own vessel. That's suicide, Max objected immediately. You're not going anywhere near that ship, Ben. I won't be alone, Ben countered, looking at the Omnitrix. I'll have 10 different alien forms to help me adapt to whatever I find in there. 11, Tetrax corrected, earning surprised looks from everyone. The Omnitrix has been scanning and adding DNA as you encounter new species. It should have added my Petrosapien DNA to its database by now. Ben's eyes widened as he checked the Omnitrix interface. You're right. There's a new silhouette in the selection menu. Even so, Max insisted, it's too dangerous. We need to find another way. A massive explosion rocked the building, much closer this time. Alarms began blaring throughout the storage facility. Citizens of Earth, a deep, menacing voice boomed from outside, amplified to impossible levels. I am Vilgax, conqueror of worlds. Surrender the Omnitrix and its wielder immediately, or witness the destruction of your civilization. Gwen peeked through the window. There. Are these huge robot things tearing up Main Street? They're destroying everything. Drones, Tetrax identified grimly. Vilgax's shock troops. They'll level the town building by building until he gets what he wants. Ben looked at Max pleadingly. People are going to die if we don't stop him. I'm the only one who can do this. Max recognized the determination in those large eyes, the same determination he'd seen when Ben was just a baby, figuring out how to navigate a world built for beings 10 times his size. He'd never been able to say no to that look. Not alone, Max finally conceded. We go together. All of us. Kevin backed toward the door. Yeah, about that. Good luck with the alien invasion and all, but this is way above my pay grade. You're just going to run? Gwen challenged, disappointment evident in her voice. Something flashed across Kevin's face, shame, perhaps, quickly buried under practiced indifference. Hey, I'm a survivor. Can't survive if you're dead, right? Without waiting for a response, he slipped out the door into the night. We're better off without him, Tetrax stated flatly. He was untrustworthy. Maybe, Ben said, watching the door thoughtfully. But he might have been useful. Another explosion, closer still, reminded them of the urgency of their situation. Max distributed weapons from his collection, a compact energy pistol for himself, a shield generator for Gwen, and a specialized tool kit for Ben's Galvan hands. What's the plan? Gwen asked, strapping the shield generator to her wrist. Ben had returned to the data decoder, downloading the last of the Omnitrix information into a portable device Max had provided. Tetrax, does your armor have any flight capability? The Petrosapien nodded. Limited atmospheric propulsion. Enough for short distances. Perfect, Ben said, hopping onto Max's offered hand. You'll take me and Gwen to the ventral cooling port on Vilgax's ship. Gwen's shield can protect us from the defense systems long enough to get inside. Max, you'll create a distraction on the ground to draw attention away from us. What kind of distraction? Max asked, already checking the charge on his energy pistol. Ben grinned. How do you feel about driving the rust bucket straight at those drones? 20 minutes later, the modified RV roared down Main Street, plowing through debris as Max activated every illegal alien tech modification he'd secretly installed over the years. Energy shields deflected incoming fire while concealed weapons returned it with interest. Come and get me, you overgrown toasters. Max shouted, swerving to avoid a car-sized chunk of building hurled by one of Vilgax's drones. Meanwhile, Tetrax rocketed upward from a nearby rooftop, Gwen clinging to his back while Ben rode securely in a specially designed compartment in the Petrosapien's armor. The massive ship loomed above them, blotting out the stars with its immense bulk. There. Ben called, pointing to a series of glowing vents on the underside of the vessel. The cooling ports. Defense turrets swiveled toward them, energy beams slicing through the night air. Gwen extended her hand, concentrating harder than she ever had before. The shield generator amplified her natural anodite abilities, creating a pinkish bubble of energy that deflected the incoming fire. "I can't hold this forever," she warned, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort. Tetrax pushed his propulsion system to its limit, rocketing toward the nearest vent. As they approached, Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling to the ghostly ectoneurite form he'd used earlier. "Get ready," he called. "I'll phase us through on 3. 1, 2, 3. He slapped down the core, transforming in a flash of green light. In his spectral form, Ben extended his intangibility to include Tetrax and Gwen, allowing them to pass harmlessly through the metal grating of the cooling vent just as the shield collapsed under a barrage of concentrated fire. They materialized inside a massive cooling chamber, the air thrumming with the power of enormous engines nearby. Gwen stumbled as she regained tangibility, gasping for breath. "That was too close," she panted. "We made it," Ben's echoing voice replied. "That's what matters." He floated ahead, scouting the massive chamber. "This way." According to the ship's schematics from the Omnitrix data, the main control conduits should be accessible through that service tunnel. They moved quickly through the ship's inner workings, avoiding patrol drones and service robots by ducking into maintenance shafts. Ben's ghostly form made him the perfect scout, able to phase through walls to check for dangers ahead. "How much further?" Gwen whispered as they paused at a junction. "Not far," Ben replied, consulting the mental map he'd memorized. "The central command node should be 2 levels up from here." A sudden alarm blared throughout the ship, red emergency lights bathing the corridors in crimson. "They've detected us," Tetrax warned, readying his crystalline weapons. "No," Ben realized, concentrating on distant sounds his enhanced hearing could detect. "They've captured someone on the surface. They're bringing them aboard." "Grandpa?" Gwen gasped, fear evident in her voice. Ben phased partially through the nearest wall, accessing a data terminal beyond. "Checking. No, not Max. It's..." His spectral eyes widened in surprise. "It's Kevin. The energy absorber." Tetrax frowned. "Why would they capture him?" "Bait," Gwen realized. "They must have detected his energy absorption ability and think he's connected to us." Ben's form flickered, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest beginning to pulse red. "I'm about to change back. We need to find cover." They ducked into a maintenance alcove just as Ben reverted to his Galvan form in a flash of red light. The tiny alien swayed slightly, the repeated transformations taking a toll on his energy levels. "You okay?" Gwen asked, kneeling to check on him. "Just tired," Ben assured her. "The Omnitrix drains my natural energy to power the transformations. Rest while it recharges," Tetrax advised. "We'll need all your strength for what comes next." Through a nearby ventilation grate, they could observe a large chamber below where armored guards were dragging a struggling Kevin toward what appeared to be a containment pod. "Let go of me, you oversized calamari rejects," the teenager shouted, futilely attempting to absorb the material of his captor's armor. Something was preventing his powers from working, likely the energy-dampening cuffs around his wrists. A massive door at the far end of the chamber slid open, and even Tetrax tensed at the figure that entered. Vilgax was enormous, easily 9 feet tall, with a squid-like face featuring tentacle-like appendages where a human's beard would be. His muscular green body was enhanced with cybernetic implants, and his red eyes burned with cold intelligence. "This is not the Omnitrix wielder," Vilgax rumbled, his voice so deep it seemed to vibrate through the ship's structure. "Though his energy signature is unusual. He was detected near the crash site, my lord," one of the guards reported. "Preliminary scans indicate ability to absorb and replicate energy patterns." Vilgax seized Kevin's face with one massive hand, examining him like a scientist might study a curious specimen. "A human energy siphon. Rare, but not valuable enough to waste my time." He released Kevin roughly. Use him as bait. The Omnitrix wielder has shown a regrettable tendency toward heroism. Perhaps he will reveal himself to save this worthless life. Kevin spat at Vilgax's feet. They're not coming for me, fish face. I barely know them. Vilgax's tentacles twitched in what might have been amusement. We shall see. He turned to his guards. Secure him in the holding cell. Then continue the assault on the human settlement below. Increase the destruction until the Omnitrix is surrendered. From their hiding place, Gwen looked at Ben. We can't leave him there. We won't, Ben agreed, surprising himself with how quickly he'd made the decision. But we need to stick to the plan. If we can trigger the system lockdown, we can trap Vilgax and free Kevin in the process. The Omnitrix pulsed green, fully recharged. Ben considered his options carefully. I need something stealthy but versatile for this next part. The ectoneurite form would be perfect, but I just used it. What about that smart alien form? Gwen suggested. The one with the huge brain. Ben nodded. The Galvan intellect. Good thinking. He twisted the dial, selecting the large-headed silhouette, and pressed down the core. Green light flashed as Ben transformed into the gray-skinned, large-craniumed alien form. Standing nearly 5 feet tall in this form, he immediately began analyzing their situation with enhanced mental capacity. Fascinating, he murmured, touching the walls of the ship. The neural integration of the vessel's system suggests a partially organic component to the technology. I may be able to exploit this. In English? Gwen requested. The ship is partly alive, Ben simplified. Which means I might be able to communicate with it directly. He placed his hands against a control panel, closing his large eyes in concentration. Yes, I can access the network. The security protocols are complex but not impenetrable given sufficient processing capacity. Tetrax stood guard while Ben worked, his crystalline body tensed for combat. Hurry. Vilgax will not waste time with his prisoner. Almost there, Ben murmured, fingers dancing across the alien interface with incredible speed. I've located the emergency containment protocols. Activating them will seal all bulkheads and trigger the stasis field in the command center, temporarily immobilizing everyone inside. Including Kevin, Gwen pointed out. Temporarily, Ben emphasized. We'll have approximately 4.3 minutes to reach the holding cells and free him before the stasis field deactivates. That's not much time, Tetrax observed grimly. It's all we've got, Ben replied, making final adjustments to the ship's systems. Ready? 3, 2, 1, now. He pressed a final sequence of controls. Immediately, alarms blared throughout the ship as massive bulkheads slammed down, sealing off sections. The lights flickered briefly as power was diverted to the stasis systems. It worked. Ben exclaimed. Vilgax and his command crew are immobilized. We have exactly 4 minutes and 18 seconds to reach Kevin. They raced through the corridors, following Ben's directions through the labyrinthine ship. The occasional guard they encountered was easily dispatched by Tetrax's crystal projectiles before they could sound an alert. The holding cells are through that door, Ben indicated as they rounded a corner. 2 guards, standard configuration. Tetrax didn't hesitate, launching crystalline shards with pinpoint accuracy that incapacitated the guards before they could react. Gwen rushed to the control panel, looking to Ben for instructions. The third sequence from the left, followed by the biometric override, he directed, his enhanced intelligence making the alien technology comprehensible. The door slid open, revealing a surprised Kevin in a transparent energy cell. You came back for me? He asked, genuine astonishment in his voice. Don't get all mushy about it, Gwen replied, trying to mask her relief with sarcasm. We need your powers. Ben deactivated the cell while Tetrax removed Kevin's restraints. We have approximately 3 minutes before the stasis field fails and Vilgax is mobile again, Ben informed them. We need to move. Wait, Kevin said, rubbing his wrists where the cuffs had been. That squid-faced freak has some kind of weird crystal powering this whole ship. He was bragging about it while they dragged me in. Said it was the heart of his power or something. Ben's large eyes widened. A power source? If we could disable it, we could cripple his entire operation, Tetrax finished, a rare smile forming on his crystalline face. Change of plan, Ben decided. Kevin, can you lead us to this crystal? The teenager nodded. 2 levels up, heavily guarded. Big chamber with weird tech all around it. The engine room, Ben realized. Vilgax must be using a corrodium crystal as a power amplifier. Highly unstable but incredibly powerful. And if we destabilize it? Gwen asked. The resulting energy cascade would disable the ship's offensive capabilities without destroying it completely, Ben explained. Exactly what we need. Kevin grinned, cracking his knuckles. So we're gonna blow stuff up. Now you're speaking my language. They made their way through the ship, Kevin leading while Ben provided guidance on avoiding security systems. When they reached the engine level, the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began flashing red. Not now, he groaned. I'm about to revert. We need cover, Tetrax said, pulling them into a recessed doorway just as the transformation timed out. With a flash of red light, Ben returned to his tiny Galvan form, suddenly dwarfed by his companions once more. Great timing as usual, he muttered. Kevin stared down at him. So that's what you really look like. Man, you're tiny. And I can still kick your butt with the right transformation, Ben retorted. Now help me up. We're running out of time. Gwen scooped Ben onto her palm, raising him to eye level. What's the plan now? We can't exactly have you scampering across the floor in there. Ben considered their options. The Omnitrix is recharging, but we can't wait. Kevin, if you can absorb some of the wall material for protection, you and Tetrax can create a diversion. Gwen, you'll use your shield to protect us while I identify the crystal's weak point. You want me to work with Crystal Man here? Kevin asked skeptically. Unless you'd prefer to face Vilgax alone when he gets free, Tetrax growled. Kevin rolled his eyes but placed his hand against the ship's wall, his skin taking on the metallic properties of the alien alloy. Fine. Let's do this. They approached the engine room cautiously. Through the massive doorway, they could see a chamber the size of a cathedral, dominated by a pulsing purple crystal suspended in a complex array of energy beams. Guards patrolled the walkways surrounding it, while technicians monitored control stations. That's it, Kevin whispered. The crystal thing. Corrodium, Ben confirmed, studying it from Gwen's palm. Extremely rare and extremely dangerous. One precise hit at the upper left facet should trigger a controlled destabilization. How precise? Gwen asked. Ben's expression was grim. Millimeter precise. We need a perfect shot. The Omnitrix chose that moment to pulse green, fully recharged. Ben smiled, an idea forming. I think I know just the form for this. He twisted the dial, cycling through options before stopping on a silhouette with multiple arms. Let's try something new, he said, pressing down the core. Green light enveloped him as he transformed, but instead of the four-armed Tetraman they expected, Ben's body reconfigured into something none of them had seen before, a tall, insect-like alien with 4 thin arms, a blue exoskeleton, and large compound eyes. Whoa, he breathed, examining his new form. I feel precise. Like I can calculate trajectories perfectly. He focused on the crystal across the room, and his vision seemed to map out every possible angle and reflection point automatically. This is exactly what we need. What is that form? Tetrax asked, not recognizing the species. No idea, Ben replied, but it's perfect for this. He spotted a loose piece of metal nearby, picking it up and testing its weight. I can make this shot. Then let's create your diversion, Tetrax nodded to Kevin, who grinned wickedly. The pair burst into the engine room from opposite sides, immediately drawing fire from the guards. Tetrax launched crystal shards while Kevin, his body now metallic and nearly invulnerable, simply charged through the opposition like a battering ram. Now! Ben called to Gwen, who activated her shield generator and sprinted toward a better vantage point, Ben close behind. They reached a raised platform overlooking the crystal array. Ben calculated the perfect angle, accounting for energy fields, air resistance, and the crystal's molecular structure, all instinctively processed by his new form's specialized brain. "One shot," he murmured, drawing back his arm. The piece of metal gleamed in his hand as he focused completely on his target. Below, chaos reigned as Tetrax and Kevin fought off increasingly numerous guards. An alarm began blaring, the stasis field had deactivated. They were out of time. "Ben!" Gwen urged, her shield flickering under sustained weapons fire. "Now!" Ben released the makeshift projectile with perfect form. It spun through the air, bypassing energy fields by passing through a precise gap in their coverage, and struck the crystal exactly where he'd aimed, a microscopic flaw in the upper left facet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a spiderweb of cracks spread across the crystal's surface, glowing with increasing intensity. Energy began to arc wildly from the destabilizing corrodium. "Time to go!" Ben shouted, already running for the exit. "That's going to cascade through the ship's systems in about 30 seconds. They regrouped at the door, fighting their way back toward the cooling vents they'd entered through. Behind them, the ship's lights began to flicker as the power system destabilized. "We're not going to make it to the vents in time," Tetrax warned as they encountered more resistance. Ben checked the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, still green and operational. "Then we make our own exit." He twisted the dial, selecting the crystalline silhouette of Tetrax's species, and slammed it down. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed into his Petrosapien form, immediately generating crystal growths from his hands that expanded outward, reinforcing the corridor around them. "Everyone behind me," he shouted, driving his fists into the outer hull of the ship. The crystal spread, creating a protective bubble around the group just as he punched through the wall completely, exposing them to the open air. They plummeted toward Bellwood below, encased in Ben's rapidly growing crystal sphere. The ship above them convulsed with energy discharges as systems failed throughout its massive structure. "Brace for impact," Ben warned, pouring every ounce of energy into strengthening their crystalline protection. They hit the ground in Bellwood Park with tremendous force, the crystal sphere absorbing most of the impact before shattering around them. Dazed but largely unharmed, they pulled themselves from the debris to stare up at Vilgax's ship, now dark and drifting powerlessly in the sky. Did we just win?" Kevin asked incredulously. "Not yet," a deep, menacing voice contradicted from behind them. They spun to find Vilgax himself standing amidst the rubble, his massive form silhouetted against the fires burning throughout Bellwood. Despite the ship's failure, he appeared undamaged, cybernetic implants glowing with internal power. "You have proven more resourceful than anticipated," Omnitrix wielder, the warlord rumbled, red eyes fixed on Ben. "But your interference ends now." Ben stepped forward protectively, his crystalline body gleaming in the firelight. "It's over, Vilgax. Your ship is disabled, your drones are powerless." "I need no ship to claim what is mine," Vilgax snarled, lunging forward with shocking speed for his size. Ben barely managed to create a crystal shield before Vilgax's fist connected, the impact shattering it instantly and sending Ben flying backward. The others scattered, Tetrax engaging Vilgax directly while Gwen pulled a dazed Kevin to safety. "The Omnitrix," Vilgax demanded, batting Tetrax aside with a casual backhand. "Surrender it, and your deaths will be quick." Ben staggered to his feet, his crystalline form already showing cracks from the single blow. "Not happening, calamari face." Vilgax's eyes narrowed. "Then I will take it from your broken body." He charged again, moving faster than anything his size should be capable of. This time, Ben was ready. He created crystal spikes from the ground, forcing Vilgax to dodge, then followed with a barrage of crystal shards that the warlord deflected with armored gauntlets. "You fight well for a mere child," Vilgax observed, "but you are outmatched." As if to demonstrate, he activated a device on his arm that emitted a high-pitched sonic pulse. Ben's crystalline form immediately began to crack more severely, the weakness of all Petrosapiens exploited perfectly. "Ben!" Gwen cried out in alarm. The Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest began flashing red again. In a desperate move, Ben twisted the dial before reverting, selecting a new form as his current one deteriorated around him. Green light engulfed him as he transformed from the failing Petrosapien directly into the massive, tiger-like eyeless form he'd used earlier. With enhanced reflexes and strength, he bounded away from the sonic attack, circling Vilgax with predatory focus. "Another form?" "Impressive," Vilgax acknowledged, deactivating the sonic device. "But I have conquered worlds, defeated armies. You are merely delaying the inevitable." Ben growled, launching himself at Vilgax with claws extended. The warlord caught him mid-leap, throwing him forcefully into a nearby tree that splintered under the impact. "Ben!" Max's voice called from across the park. The rust bucket skidded to a halt nearby, its modified weapons deploying to target Vilgax. "Stay back, Max!" Ben shouted, struggling to his feet. "He's too strong." Vilgax turned toward the RV with contempt. "Primitive technology," he sneered, striding toward it. "Easily disposed of." "Not my grandpa, you don't." Gwen shouted, running forward with hands glowing pink. She hurled a bolt of mana energy that struck Vilgax squarely in the back, staggering him momentarily. The warlord turned, genuinely surprised. "An anodite hybrid? On Earth?" His surprise quickly gave way to calculated interest. "Perhaps I shall take 2 prizes from this backward planet." "Take this instead," Kevin shouted, having absorbed the metal from a park lamppost. He charged Vilgax from the side, his metallic fist connecting solidly with the warlord's jaw. Vilgax barely flinched, grabbing Kevin by the throat. "Your courage exceeds your intelligence, human." He hurled Kevin aside like a rag doll. Ben saw his friends in danger and something snapped inside him. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began to pulse rapidly, neither red nor green but a swirling combination of colors. Pain shot through his body as the device responded to his desperate emotional state. "Leave them alone!" Ben roared, his form suddenly enveloped in blinding green energy. When the light faded, Ben stood transformed into something entirely new, a being that appeared to combine features from multiple alien forms. He had the height and 4 arms of a Tetramand, the fiery core of a Pyronite, the sensory capabilities of a Vulpamencer, and traces of other forms all merged into one cohesive, powerful whole. "What is this?" Vilgax demanded, genuine alarm in his voice for the first time. "The Omnitrix cannot create hybrid forms." "Looks like it just did," Ben replied, his voice a resonant combination of several alien vocal patterns. He flexed all 4 arms, feeling the incredible power coursing through him. "Let's see how you handle this, Vilgax." He moved with blinding speed, striking Vilgax with a fiery fist that actually drove the warlord backward. Follow-up blows came from all 4 arms in rapid succession, each hitting with devastating force. Vilgax recovered quickly, his cybernetic enhancements allowing him to match Ben's new form in combat. They traded earth-shaking blows across the park, neither gaining a clear advantage. "Impressive," Vilgax admitted, blocking a flaming uppercut. "But futile. The Omnitrix was not designed for combat. This hybrid state is unstable, it will collapse soon enough." As if confirming his words, Ben felt a strange fluctuation in his transformation, the different alien aspects struggling to remain integrated. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest flickered erratically. "Then I'll just have to end this quickly," Ben declared, focusing all his energy into a final assault. He channeled the Pyronite's flames through his upper arms while directing the Petrosapien's crystal generation through his lower limbs. The combination created a superheated plasma blade on each hand, glowing with intense energy. Vilgax's eyes widened slightly, the closest thing to fear the warlord had shown. He activated defensive shields on his gauntlets, preparing to counter. Ben struck with all 4 plasma blades simultaneously, the energy overwhelming Vilgax's shields and driving the warlord to his knees. The ground beneath them cracked from the force of the confrontation. Impossible, Vilgax growled, struggling against the overwhelming energy. No mere child could. I'm not just any kid, Ben interrupted, pushing harder. I'm the kid Asmoth chose. The one who understands both worlds. And this, he gestured to his hybrid form, is what happens when those worlds collide. With a final surge of effort, Ben overpowered Vilgax's defenses completely. The resulting energy discharged through the warlord backward, his armor smoking and damaged. Before Vilgax could recover, the ground beneath him collapsed, dropping him into the sewer system. Below in a shower of debris. Ben staggered, his hybrid form beginning to break down. The Omnitrix symbol flashed wildly as energy cascaded across his body. With a final, blinding flash of green light, he reverted, not to his Galvan form, but directly to unconsciousness. Ben. Ben, can you hear me? Max's voice filtered through the darkness, pulling Ben back to consciousness. He opened his eyes slowly, finding himself in his tiny Galvan form, lying on a pillow in the rust bucket. Did we win? He asked groggily, his voice weak even by Galvan standards. Thanks to you, we did, Max confirmed with a relieved smile. Vilgax retreated to what was left of his ship and left orbit about an hour ago. From what Tetrax can tell, the damage you did to both him and his vessel will keep him out of commission for quite some time. Ben tried to sit up, finding his limbs unusually heavy. What happened to me? That hybrid form. The Omnitrix's emergency adaptation protocol, Tetrax explained, stepping into view. Asmoth theorized it was possible but never confirmed its functionality. You're the first to activate it. And possibly the last, for a while, Max added, gently pushing Ben back down. The energy drain nearly killed you. The Omnitrix has entered a regeneration mode to prevent further harm. Ben glanced at the device on his wrist, noticing it was dim and unresponsive. How long? Unknown, Tetrax replied. Hours, perhaps days. The device is self-repairing, but such extensive energy expenditure requires recovery time. The door to the rust bucket opened, and Gwen entered with Kevin trailing behind her. Both looked battered but triumphant. The hero awakens, Gwen smiled, kneeling beside the table where Ben lay. How are you feeling, tiny cousin? Like I got stepped on by Vilgax, Ben groaned. Twice. Kevin hung back awkwardly. That was, pretty cool, what you did back there. The whole combo alien thing. Thanks, Ben replied, surprised by the compliment. You weren't so bad yourself. For a juvenile delinquent. Kevin actually smiled. Yeah, well, turns out fighting alien warlords pays better than breaking into convenience stores. Pays? Max raised an eyebrow. Kevin shrugged. Figure of speech. Tetrax stepped forward. I must depart soon. With Vilgax temporarily defeated, I have responsibilities elsewhere. But first, I have information you should know, Ben. What is it? Ben asked, managing to sit up this time. During the battle, I detected a transmission from Vilgax's ship, directed off-world, to coordinates I recognize. Tetrax's expression was grave even through his crystalline features. He was communicating with someone about the Omnitrix. Someone who knew details only its creator could know. Asmoth? Ben guessed, confused. Tetrax shook his head. No. Someone who once worked with Asmoth but was exiled from Galvan Prime for dangerous experimentation. A Galvan scientist named Albedo. Another Galvan? Ben's large eyes widened with surprise. One who believes the Omnitrix is his rightful creation, Tetrax explained. And who may have been the one to inform Vilgax of its location. So this isn't over, Max concluded grimly. Far from it, Tetrax confirmed. But you've proven yourselves capable allies. I will return when I can with more information. He placed a small crystalline device on the table beside Ben. A communication link. If you need me before then, use this. After Tetrax departed in a repaired shuttle from his damaged ship, the group gathered around the Rustbucket's small table. The first light of dawn was breaking over Bellwood, illuminating a town that would need considerable rebuilding after Vilgax's attack. So what now? Gwen asked the question on everyone's mind. Max looked at each of them thoughtfully. Well, we still have most of the summer ahead of us. And it seems we have work to do. Plumber work? Ben asked hopefully. Someone needs to protect Earth from whatever else is out there, Max nodded. And with the Omnitrix on your wrist, Ben, you're likely to attract more attention, both good and bad. What about me? Kevin asked unexpectedly. When everyone looked at him in surprise, he shrugged defensively. I mean, I helped save the world too. And it's not like I have anywhere else to be. Max studied the troubled teenager for a long moment. Your abilities could be very useful. And perhaps you could use some mentoring. You mean like probation, Kevin translated dryly. I mean like a second chance, Max clarified. Something I suspect you haven't had many of. Kevin's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I could stick around. For a while. If you need the help. And I need to learn to control these powers, Gwen added, looking at her hands. Before I accidentally blow something up. Ben grinned, looking around at this unlikely team they'd assembled. So we're what, some kind of alien fighting, world-saving squad now? Call it a family, Max suggested. An unusual one, but family nonetheless. As the sun rose fully over Bellwood, casting long shadows across the damaged town, Ben thought about everything he'd learned in the past few days. He wasn't just a Galvan stranded on Earth anymore. He was part of something bigger, a bridge between worlds, just as Azimuth had intended. The Omnitrix might be temporarily disabled, but he'd be ready when it reactivated. After all, he had 11 different aliens to master, a mysterious Galvan conspiracy to unravel, and apparently a whole universe of threats to face. But for the first time, he wouldn't face it alone or in hiding. He had a team now. A family. So, Grandpa, Ben asked with a mischievous glint in his large Galvan eyes, where are we going next? Max smiled, starting up the Rustbucket's engine. I hear there's some interesting activity near a place called Mount St. Helens. Might be worth checking out. Road trip. Gwen declared, buckling into her seat. Kevin shrugged, but couldn't entirely hide his enthusiasm. Whatever. As long as we stop for food that isn't moving this time. As the Rustbucket pulled away from the curb, heading toward whatever adventure awaited them next, Ben settled comfortably on the dashboard, watching the world pass by, a world he was now officially sworn to protect. A tiny alien with a big responsibility. And he wouldn't have it any other way. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.